Thank you, Has a Flavour. Good evening, all. How are you doing on this fine evening? Apologies for the scratty background over here. My camera setup is normally further over on this side. In fact, you can just see it in the edge of the shot. And it turned off just as I went live, so I'm assuming it's a battery issue. But, you know, is what it is. I've got a second one on here. Muted was better. How dare you, that rat bastard. How dare you. Got some of the regulars. Good evening, Existence. Hope you're doing well. Nick's here. Good to have you. Ronnie as well. New name in chat. Haven't seen you before. Glad to have you. Looking at the wrong camera. Tommy Ackerson left a message, I don't know how long ago. Said, Val gives nice things. This stream shows why we can't have nice things. Don't really understand what that's meant to mean. You wanna explain that one? Perfect screenshot of Rob and Val. Yeah, I've just... So, I was advised... So, I don't want to watch the whole thing. There's going to be a good chunk of disclaimers before I get into this. That is a good shot of Val, specifically. Been hitting the vape too much. You know what? It's better for you than smoking. I'm not going to shame him for that. It's a healthier version of the of getting the nicotine fix. We've all got our vices, and as long as we don't have too many vices, then it's it's all right. God, I'm broken. I keep looking at the wrong camera. Keep looking out of shot. So, React content. Obviously, I think something like this is interesting and worth doing. I also think there are issues with the React content, and one of the issues is the person or the people who've put a lot of work into it doesn't get the click. I'm not going to be watching the whole thing. In fact, I have got the video linked down in the description if you want to go and check it out. I've been advised to look at the first sort of half an hour, and that covers the whys, basically. And then after that, it goes into, you can see here, where they break down the individuals. Not going to watch them break down the individuals. If you want to see that, go and watch them. Obviously, they do a lot of good work. But we are going to listen to why they're making the change, and I'm going to give my thoughts on some of those changes there. Solar Wardens, greetings for the future. Are you Australian by any chance? That's normally where the future comes from. Izzy the War Master, good to have you, Izzy. And Broma Sapien, we're going to get a tier list of their changes. That's not a bad shout, actually. Not this evening. Not this evening. So, in terms of more disclaimers, obviously I really like Rob and Val. I have worked with Val a little bit on SBot 1. I was the cameraman for the final. I had no creative input. I didn't really do anything with it. I had a little bit more input on the second one. I was there for some beforehand meetings. But I didn't really have much effect on it. And again, I was the cameraman for the second SBot final. Why am I bringing that up? Obviously, I really like both of these guys. There are potentially inherent biases here. So, even though I don't necessarily agree with the with this being done, keep in mind that any of my opinions might be biased towards the fact that I like both of these chaps and, you know, the other people involved. I assume he credits the people. I think when I was flicking through the PDF, I saw there is a credits slide. I'm not on there, which is entirely reasonable because he asked me to take a look at it and I was like, yeah, I'll do it, even though you know that I'm not on board. And then I just never got round to looking. So first of all, apologies, Val. Really sorry about that. But we can give some thoughts on it in a non-derogatory way. That's what we're going with. Anthony's here, painting your High Elf Prince on Griffin while listening to me. Hell yeah. It's a great model. If you've got the Island of Blood one, oh, love that thing. Landon says, all for it, want to see more variety of faction like local club. Yep, that's fair. Chris, changes like this make me feel less bad about the effort I'm putting into making a Lizardman army. Love the models. Very good. Landon says, guys like the video so Ed can afford to build a new Skaven army. That's fair. That's fair. Bromo Sapiens putting love out for the enthusiasm. Fully endorse this. This is something they wouldn't have to do since Games Workshop won't. Hey Steve, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. I've been, I'll put some details in the chat later on, but I've been hard at work and I am, I think 110 legs, bodies and heads glued together for your Orc and Goblin horde. So I've been hard at work this week. So, I did watch the introduction of this video. And I don't think we need to watch that again, and I stopped here. So basically I want to go through why they think the legacy PDFs need editing, what the process is, table of contents, and then the core rules changes. I think those are the interesting things that we should look at here. That rat bastard says not interested in attending any tournament, not trialing list. Interesting. See, I don't agree. My general premise is I'm a Games Workshop purist. All of the games that I've played since coming back to the hobby, they have actively supported. So I see no reason why that wouldn't be the case here. Thank you, that rat bastard. I do love how it says that rat emoji. I think that should give like a squeak sound. It should automatically change it to a squeak sound. No Dark Elf honors, lame. Well, that's one of the reasons I'm a little reticent about it, because obviously I've won a tournament with Dark Elves. If you buff Dark Elves, you just make them better. Okay, so let's talk about why I'm a little reticent about more being involved in the process. I'm not necessarily pro things being changed by the community, and there's lots of reasons that we can get into, but one of the main reasons that I can't be involved in the process, and this is not to justify the fact that I just didn't respond to Val after I said I would. Sorry again, bud. The thing I like the most is finding the things that are good and breaking the game around that. And I feel like if you're doing homebrew stuff, you have to approach it with a level of fair interest where you're like, oh, well, this seems a bit good, so I'll only take one of those. And that's not how I enjoy building lists and playing the game. And if I do it with a very strict confines of what has been like written and pushed out by the company, as long as it's not, you know, absolute bullshit, that is where I'd rather stand on it. Active in the chat today. Good to have you all here. Solar Warden, the Australian tournament subgroup of Ultios, has a live poll for players to vote in. Well, Scott, don't let them make Vampire Counts Leadership 9. It's the kind of change players won't realise whether they lose to Vampire Counts more. Vampire Counts definitely don't need any help. I genuinely haven't looked through this list, so I actually don't know what's coming. I think the reason they've been very clear they won't be updating anything with regards to the legacy factions. Yeah, they have done that, to be fair. Anything inhibiting factions from playing, including Games Workshop Sloth, can get in the sea. Ginger Steve, if you buff anything, you make it better. That is an accurate statement. And you want to be able to field your rats and not have it be a massive uphill struggle. I understand that. And I'm not saying that I have the right opinion. It's just how I personally feel about it. So I think let's get into this and let's have a look at what they're talking about. This is the high level of production that you've come to expect from me. I do love the fact that we have a load of actual characters in this game. I obviously not one of them, but we do have some very silly people. I say that with love. I don't mean that derogatory as well. Sound's not coming through. There we go.
A lot of them are things that were. I'm so happy they were released. Full stop. I think it's really, really cool. However, if you're unfamiliar with where Old World came from, it started development somewhere around 2019-ish. Be 2018, and then was clearly sidelined for a period of time. When it was first announced, we had Kislev and Cathay and you know, everything that's Square comes around again, all this kind of stuff. And then when we got into last year, into the sort of the 2023 timeline, sorry, I guess the year before last, they announced that there were core factions and legacy factions. And
yeah, so I mean, this has been talked about a few times, right? I think it's fairly common knowledge or accepted knowledge. I can't say that it's 100%, but up until fairly late in the process, all of the armies were going to go in. And then a handful of months before everything was wrapped up, they decided that they weren't doing that. And I assume they'll talk about the profit and loss departments, but yeah, it's what it is. You feel like you'd be more confused if everything worked out of the gate on the stream. That's funny. I will say, in my defense, that the things that go wrong are normally fairly minor, and I fix them pretty quickly. I'm a dab hand at fixing things at speed, but that's fair.
And that the legacy factions don't use them. They're not going to be supported. They're not going to be allowed at tournaments. Just the ones in Nottingham at Warhammer World.
Actually, the second most popular wargaming event for Old World in Nottingham.
That's right.
That's funny.
The first being the TSN Arena, which you can get tickets at.
Again, a homage to someone, and not a criticism. Please, YouTube, please just shut the fuck up.
This is a complete sidebar. It drives me nuts how much hate Rob gets. He is one of the nicest people I've ever met. Genuinely. If you've ever been to one of his events, you'll know this, because he's just constantly worried about everyone having a good time. That is his modus operandi, which is... It's just a real shame that it's, some people seem to be driven nuts by him.
Okay, all right, carry on.
Oh no, I'll go high five Uncle Adam. We're in his hometown, so anyway, so we obviously a year ago when all this was going down, we saw these things. We chafed very vigorously against this, and also me personally, I feel like it's very important that these armies, because we're talking, of course, of Chaos Dwarfs, we're talking about demons, ogres, Skaven, dark elves, vampire counts, and lizardmen. These are like crucial elements of the world and the world building of Old World, of Warhammer Fantasy. And
some of the most popular factions
we suspect that the reason they're not present in the game, some of it might come down to logistics. It's tough to drop 16 complete army lines of models and miniatures and stuff in one go, so maybe it's been pended. But more likely, it comes down to this weird bit of internal politicking at Games Workshop, in which I only refer to as the publisher, which is the schism, basically, that you have the studio, you have the main studio, they're responsible for things like Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40K, and then you have SDS, Specialist Design Studios, formerly Forge World, responsible for everything else, or a lot of other things like Necromunda, Horus Heresy, Old World, and some others as well.
Making money.
And they are no longer crossing the streams when it comes to internal IP. So that would be things like miniatures, are now sort of siloed. They're dedicated to each game. And that's why you don't see AOS models officially supported or used in Old World. And you have the Old World models being released from the old sort of sculpts and things like that. We don't know when that schism for Old World happened, but it sure feels pretty recent. And so when you're looking at the Renegade / like,
so the change is recent, right? Because I don't think any games have had this issue up until this year. Obviously, if you do any of the Armies on Parade stuff, they announced pretty recently that you can't use anything from other systems in your display board. I was watching Miniature Realms. Stu, really lovely guy. Go and check out his stuff if you haven't already. He was using some Lord of the Rings pieces for his fantasy army board and found that he couldn't use them because Lord of the Rings is apparently not allowed to be put with, Warhammer Fantasy, which is nuts.
Legacy lists. You'll note it really feels like everything was being developed together at one point, and then these guys were dropped. And I would say even make the argument that there's 5 of them that seem to have been dropped earlier, and 2 of them that made it much further in development. That would be.
Ooh. Which ones do we think he expects to have been developed further? So Vampire counts as obviously one of the 2, because there's Skaven are terrible, like very poorly written. Lizardmen are very poorly written. Ogres are... Honestly, like, Ogres don't feel too awful, but just, like, the balance isn't there. I think the way the game is set up. I don't think Ogres are good, but I think they don't feel like a bad one. Chaos Demons feels terrible. Yeah, Chorfs. I think Chorfs is a really solid idea. Chaos Dwarves feel like one of the most fleshed out. Yeah, I think Vampire Counts and Chorfs. That's a good shout, Skulls. And how quickly can we make them regret these changes? I don't know that I want to make them regret the changes. I think it's more interesting to have a discussion about it. Yeah,
the
Chaos
Vampire
Dwarves,
Counts and
Chaos
Dark
Dwarves
Elves
do feel good.
Both of those army lists feel very close to the finish line.
Oh, wait, hold on. I missed it. What did he say?
And 2 of them that made it much further in development. That would be Vampire Counts and Dark Elves.
Dark Elves is interesting, because Dark Elves are dog shit. So, obviously, the things that are good are very good, but there's just, like, no internal balance in the book, and they're very dull. You can take sort of 4 or 5 very good units. So, the Sorceress is good, the Lord is good, wrapping the Dragon into those 2. You've got the Dark Riders are good at what they do, Shades are good, Cold One Riders are good, and I don't know if there's anything else in there that I actually think is actively a good choice. So, yeah.
Both of those army lists feel very close to the finish line, whereas the other 5 maybe didn't get as much polish.
Yeah, they're really restrained. That's good to know.
That's fair.
Yeah. So what is that all to say? That is all to say that all 7 of them need some help. They never got the final edit. They didn't get brought up to the same place where the core rules were at. So you can see a lot of artifacts in the legacy armies that are like clearly written for a different draft of core rules. Should be. And also specifically in the army lists, you see a lot of conditions. So there's a lot of situations where like you have to bring this unit, you have to bring that unit, et cetera, et cetera. What that means is that forever and for always, if these are the only army lists we ever get for these armies, Source Wars have to be brought in every single Lizard Mid list. And so
I think
this is all we have. That kind of really narrows down what you're allowed to do from an army building perspective. And it also stops you from being able to be creative, thematic, build your best possible list. If you're a competitive gamer, if you like to go to tournaments and events, they're very handcuffed, they're hamstrung, and kind of needlessly. A lot of people complain about the points and other things about them, but fundamentally, they just pay a lot in taxes internally that I think also make them like just really a pain in the butt to play with. They they feel like they actively discourage you from using them. And so about a month ago, I've been thinking about this obviously since last year, but about a month ago, for whatever reason, I decided that I really wanted to take a really good kick at editing these things, rewriting these things. And I wouldn't say rewrite in the sense of like, sometimes you'll see like people who do a full rewrite of the rules. Mm-hmm. This is really intended to be more of an edit. So like this is meant to get them to a tier that's like closer to where the core armies wound up when they were released. And then from
I guess this is a good point to just like very briefly talk about why I'm not in favor, and it's the multiple competing standards thing, right? If you've got loads of people. It's the classic XKCD comic or whatever it is, where it's like, oh no, we've got 13 international competing standards. Let's write one to unify them all, and then next step is, oh no, we've got 14 international competing standards. If this just gets picked up by everyone and they don't go nuts with it, a lot of my issues with it kind of go away.
From here, hopefully that means that the Renegade factions can sort of continue alongside the main factions for however long they need to.
Okay. All right, so I guess I should ask my first question. How dare you?
Who is this guy? I think he is.
Excellent.
He's literally out of breath right now.
Okay, no, yeah, obviously, I think my support for the Renegade factions is real, of course. And as I've said many times, the community can generally be pretty antsy when it comes to certain stuff. I think a future where there is half the armies are gutted, let's say it's like you can't see many of that play, it definitely also makes a much more boring meta game. And also, even if you're not talking about the competitive scene, if you're just talking about your friendly club store, there only being so many armies is actually pretty dull. Like, it's fun playing against, and also like for narrative players, there's more opportunity. Or like casual players who just want to like play against a bunch of different stuff, it's better. So there's just a variety of different people who win, and I don't think there's anyone who really loses out. And I think a real good question to ask yourselves as well is, for you personally, do you want there to be more armies to play against or not? I guess is.
Yeah, I think it's more stark as well now that we've got a number of the not legacy factions, the arcane journals, because all of the armies that have got arcane journals have got expanded choice. Whether they're all good, you could argue that some are better than others, but if you haven't got anything like that or anything like that coming for the legacy factions, I can empathize with it feeling a bit rough.
Is the crux of it. But also, I don't know, let's say Val completely missed the mark on one of the armies and they made it super strong, but it wasn't as strong as, Mortuary Cult or 3 Dragons in Chaos, right? Or it was as strong as them. they still exist. Does that make sense? Like, as long as you don't make it stronger than 3 Dragons, right? that's your high end, like, too powerful, which is one of the things
I think I disagree with that. I think if you get it too far, like, the average win rate isn't 50% because there's lots of more draws in Old World than there are in like Age of Sigmar or 40k. But I think if you go too far above like the average win rate, it's a very feels bad that someone's playing with homebrew rules that are too strong. I agree with the premise though. Like, obviously there are things that are going to be better, but I think just the perception of how people are going to feel being smashed repeatedly. Like, let's say Bretonians were homebrew. Or like, Renegade faction fixed. It would feel very rough if they were winning consistently. And you could argue that they'll just make changes to it, but I think you want to shoot for probably like 0.5% below the average win rate. Ideally, you want to be very, very, very slightly underpowered or perfectly balanced with this update. You don't want to get any feels bad in there, and it gives you more scope to turn the dial up, so you make things stronger, but you don't want them to be too strong and turn them down because you'll lose a lot of goodwill there. So why not just support it? Because all of the reasons that I've said, I'm not actively, I'm not out here shitting on it. I'm going into it with an open mind and trying to explain my thought process. Isn't that a really rubbish argument? No. I appreciate that you think I have that level of pull. I'm a relatively small fish in reality. If you think about how many people care about Old World overall, I don't think I've got that level of pull. Demons 1% play rate from Square Base Survey, maybe 1.5% now. That's fair. Can Witch Elves use Murderous One fighting with their base equipment to 2-hand weapons? I don't know, but not currently, no. I think additional hand weapon replaces hand weapon. I don't think you can actually just use hand weapons. Peg Knights feel like a homebrew. Yes.
I've always said about comp is when people are like, they've actually made that quite good. And I'm like, have they made it broken like the other thing? And people are like, no. I'm like, well, then it's fine. So, okay, cool.
So, like, actually, this is a really good opportunity to talk to you about process too. One is that like this is in no way, shape, or form a rebalance either. And so what I mean by rebalance is that these rules are not like any rules changes that I suggest are there done almost entirely by vibe. So is it something that this is a really good opportunity to talk to you about process too. One is that like this is in no way, shape, or form a rebalance either. And so what I mean by rebalance is that these rules are not like any rules changes that I suggest are there done almost entirely by vibe.
I think that's good.
So is it
because that's kind of like how Warhammer is written in general, right? We don't play it because it's the best balanced game in the world. It's written to a specific feel. So if he's going down that line, I think that's a pretty reasonable way to bring in changes.
Something that used to work? Is it something that used to be in the game? Is it something that should be in the game? Like if anyone read it and said like, yeah, that should be there. The impact that these changes have, I literally have no clue.
Fuck, you were winning me over. You can't say that. Oh, I don't think that's a fair or accurate representation of what he's done as well. Because I know that Shane Orse has been working with him on these, and it looked like a pretty hefty list in the acknowledgements page. And if he was reaching out to me, he was reaching out to multiple people. So I assume that at the very least there has been a decent chunk of thought and process gone into it. But like, you can't just say, "Oh, I don't know if this is going to be balanced."
This is literally going to be throwing this out there, and these armies are what they are, just like if this was how they were when they were released, right? So this is an attempt to get them to a place where they maybe should have been, right, when they came out, and it's still not even close. There's lots of details that I didn't even bother to try and like reduce the wild amount of.
It is,
like,
that's fair.
To try and prevent an overwhelming amount of changes. I tried to go for the sort of heavy hitters, things that are going to have big impacts, and for the most part, that's army lists and then some rules tweaks, and also bringing back to things like slants, things like the Screaming Bell and Plague Furnace and Cauldron of Blood,
it would be
being able to go into units.
Models.
Things that are sort of iconic, I think, for some armies, being able to have those things in units again.
Sorry, ask another question. Again, how dare you?
Well, I like those things a lot. I think they look really, really cool.
How am I doing? How am I doing in my the other role? Good? Is it going well?
It. Yeah, nailing it.
Yeah,
that is the internet in general.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, do you want to hit up the dedications? Like, you want to do some shout outs now, or do you want to do it at the end? Actually, we should get into it.
Yeah, we should get into it. So yeah, the process was I took a stab at it. I then shared it amongst my friends, including Rob. Rob wanted to remain impartial so that he could be a devil's advocate on the show.
That's fair.
And also was afraid of being fed his own asshole on the internet. And I understand that.
Also fair.
I think that is not a great thing. And to be fair...
No, just there's only a certain amount of asshole I can eat every week. That's all. I already get fed my own asshole a lot on the internet. So you get to be the fun uncle. The dad gets this shit all the time.
Well, so, as the fun uncle, I think the internet has been overwhelmingly kind to me. The first time I dropped it, there was a lot of concern around like fracturing the community and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, there was a lot of people coming to my defense, and not necessarily viewers of the show, because I was posting in the Reddit r/Warhammer Fantasy group, which provided incredible feedback and is
pretty
often a little hostile to me. But they were not in this case. We had the members of the Squarebase Discord, obviously friendly territory. The Warhammer Facebook, Warhammer the Old World Facebook group.
Not those other
Facebook is such a rough place to post
jerks.
videos.
They don't get to party with us. Were incredibly important, but also just random people finding me and reaching out to me on Discord.
Rough.
Specifically for demons, Danny McDonald, who's a guy out in Ottawa, he's an organizer. The God of Cakes helped out with demons. Grenmuck and Fresh Prince of Nostramo on Discord for Chaos Dwarfs. Eagle on Discord for Lizardmen was big. And then all of my close associates. We had Oss, who's basically my Toronto TO and guy I go to for all rules questions.
There's nothing on
obviously, Peter the Falcon Colosimo, I was hitting him up constantly, and his pals on his podcast, The Old World Charm, Danny and Adam. Steve and Luca from Mountain Miniatures, who are going to adopt this wholesale on their channel. So basically the only real old world bat rep channel that does consistent battle reports on like sort of large scale production will be using these on their show. They're very, very excited. We had Monster Slayer Productions. That's the TO group behind things like the Las Vegas Open, the BAO, who are also they're running an invitational. They'll be testing this pack, looking to use it at some of the largest events in North America. And then a local podcast, Motley Crude, the guys who run Capital City Bloodbath and Canhammer Teams, also provided some great input. And I will say, those guys are some of the most hostile people towards comp and changing rules that I know, and have shit on me for things I've done elsewhere, also encouraged by this. So there's a pretty broad coalition here, Rob. A coalition, you might say, of the willing.
That's pretty rough, Angus. So Angus saying, my fear is this is going to divide the community. Already you've seen people leave group chats and tee off at each other over just that. Yeah, that is my main concern. Like, if we had like a 95% uptick, I'd be like, all right, sure, whatever, I'm down. But I feel like we're more likely to get like a 50 or 60% uptake. And maybe that's even being overly optimistic. Which just means that we have a split community, which is rough. Mountain Minis has moved to a mostly casual type of armies after the lukewarm reception to the battle reports. I can see why they'd go for this. Yeah, I think that fits their vibe. I don't know that they're particularly competitive players. Cool.
The willing to be renegades.
Okay. All right. I'm not getting into that at all. Yikes. I'll ask again. How dare you?
Why has that been used in it? Is that a tagline that's already been used?
I don't know, but if the end of this, if these slides at the end it says mission accomplished, I'm going to be very mad.
That is indeed the final slide. We fixed it, everybody. We're going home. Declare victory. Declare victory. Anyway, so yeah, let's jump into it. I think I've blown all the smoke I need to do. I want folks to know that this comes from a place of passion amongst everyone who's contributed, and the door is still open. If you see anything here that you're interested in commenting on, please hit it up in the comments, feed it back to me, get it in front of me on Facebook, Discord, anywhere you can do it, because I track everything in a sheet, and this is made up of so many ideas that have come to me from outside. I couldn't possibly attribute it all properly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the fact that he's very open to feedback is good, obviously. Skulls, I'm surprised people would be mad about this. More viable armies is always better. But people don't want to play homebrew. Like, that's just a objective fact. Some people are okay with it, some people like it, some people don't. I'm not in favor of homebrew in general. You know, it's very understandable that some people don't want to play it, because it's one step away from playing, you know, the game as it is intended. Steve would drink homebrew. Well, Steve, there is a channel directly for that in the Discord, and if you haven't joined the Discord, there's a link down in the description, and you can hang out and chat shit about various things. Games Workshop official lines, they shouldn't be in tournaments. Yeah, well, that is for now, I think. Our local clubs are psyched. We've got so many legacy factions across our members. It's given us such a boost to play them again. That's cool. Even if my army was core, I'd support it out of empathy for those who aren't. Right, so Bromo Sapien saying that most people are from the 6th edition fantasy era are pretty much built on homebrew and bending the rules. Sure, but like I don't think that's the majority of the player base, right? And it maybe varies from area to area. But I think a lot of players have been playing, well, I mean, obviously they did the survey, and I saw the results of the survey. The largest piece of the pie was people coming from 40k, and 40k is a very by-the-book rule set. Even the casual players played like the very strict, limited, this is the most recent tournament patch. So it's a real change in feel. It's not homebrew if we all do it. It still is homebrew, it's just accepted homebrew.
But
again, if that's what
it's been really,
wants,
really fun and cool to
really
be the Pied Piper of this, because I feel like it's something
just
that
worried about splitting
people are super excited about.
Okay, fun. Fun. Okay, so we've got a table of contents, right? Pre-phase dedication, we've gone through that. Renegade core rule changes, and then you've got updates for Chaos Dwarfs, Demons of Chaos, Lizardmen, Ogre Kingdoms, Skaven, Vampire Counts, and Dark Elves. Ooh, okay.
Even
Just a quick kind of question from me to you.
Yeah, Callum's got a good point. Diminish because it's not official for event context. So, do we have to split the rankings for people who are using non-official and official stats? Because that would skew win rates and stuff like that. I think that's an important conversation to have.
Actually, what kind of impact would, percentage-wise, when we're talking about events, some of these armies are very underplayed, right? Demons of Chaos is one, as an example. And obviously we've done the survey. So do you think that the lack of people playing these armies at events has been because of structural rules changes, like the ones that, structural rules issues, or because, they feel like they're a little concerned that their army might not be valid, and something like this might give it a bit of life? Little column A?
Sorry, Skulls. What if 40k decided Space Marines aren't legal anymore? Everyone would 100% be on board for homebrew. That's not accurate, I don't think. So all of the Forge World models that were, the 30k models that have been usable in tournament play, competitive play for Warhammer 40,000 for at minimum the last sort of 7 or 8 years, all of that has been squeezed out of the game over the last sort of 18, 24 months, something like that. And people just don't run events that allow those models. It'd be super easy to do, just have them in. They all got 10th edition rules at the start of the edition, even if they were non-official ones. This isn't homebrew. It literally is homebrew, Nick.
Hey, little column B, what do you think?
I think it's beyond that. I think that this has basically led a third. So a third of the people on our survey identified a legacy faction as their favorite faction. And I think that basically suggests to me that there's about a third of the potential players out there that are just disenfranchised. So there's people who are grinding. There are still people grinding out with the vanilla Renegade list, doing their best. People are trying to make Skaven work. Ed on close order. He's out there doing some weird shit with Skaven and gutter runners and stuff, and but they don't look like what you want them to look like. They're not. It's not what you imagine a Skaven list to look like. So people have to get, if they want to go to a tournament and not just get completely rocked, like you said, the bottom table at your most recent event was Skaven versus Skaven. Skaven wins. Both of them were 0-4 at the time. It's a miserable experience, and I think it's a miserable experience whether you're at a tournament or if you're at home playing with your buddies. And I think a lot of people, even at the list building phase, it's kind of miserable, and we can get into why that is, just because of all the conditions and things you have to jump through in order to do anything with these lists. So yeah, I think not only is it discouraging them to be played at events, I think it's just discouraging fans of these factions from playing at all. And there's also 30% of people said that one of these was one of their favorite factions. 51% of all players said, this is on our survey, you can go back and look at one of our videos, but 51% of all players said that they owned a legacy faction when the edition started, which is wild. And then 97.5% of players said that they wanted to see the Renegades become core factions in the future.
Yeah, I think we all want to see them become core factions. Alex says the changes were very subtle. Don't think it makes any of the factions overpowered. That's good. I genuinely haven't looked them through yet, so we'll see about that. But the smaller the tweaks, the less of a problem I have with it. I'm just and going into Landon, what would you say is your greatest concern? The possibility that more people will release their own comp/homebrew. Yeah, I think it's just the fracturing of the community. So if this one gets picked up massively, it kind of works out, and I'm not super against it, because people are bringing up really good points. It sucks to play legacy factions right now. They are unfinished, they are underpowered, all of these aspects. But if you've got half the community wanting to play with and half the community wanting to play without, splitting player base is always bad. And you see this anytime, you see this all the time in video games where you add various queues for specific things. It fractures player bases. Queue times get super long. It's harder to find games. All of that. Boss Grant says, you mentioned me by Skaven's name. Oh, I probably don't deserve that. I'm not the best Skaven player. I think I capped out at 3-2 or something like that. I could have had a 4-1, but I threw it. I'm going to shout out Anubis as the real Skaven head. Coming from an influential source gives it a sense of authenticity. That's absolutely true. But what if, 3 more YouTubers decide to release their own version of comp? You own 4 legacy armies. That's the armies that appeal to me the most are the legacy armies. I love the legacy armies. A lot of them are the ones with the most flavor. I really want to play ogres, but I just can't. I can't find a reason to do so. Bromo, playing mostly casually with a closed group, and do you have nothing against using old 6th edition character prototypes? Yeah, that's great. Like, for playing within a closed community, that sort of thing works out perfectly. What else have we got in here? Yeah.
So they have tremendous support, and I think it's actually one of the turnoffs for Old World is how brutal they are.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Nice.
So this is to me, this is a big part of building a big tent. So like, to me, this is one of the driving factors, excluding some players from the game, is the poor support for these factions. And so if this gives them a line into the game, and we've seen, again, in our survey data, getting into the game means you start building a new army, right? Like, so people with dusty old armies started new armies 61% of the time. Also
means you make friends, and statistically, people with hobbies live longer. So Val's saving your life.
That's fun.
He's saving, well, he's extending your life. It's slightly different.
He should probably focus on extending his own life as well, but we'll get there.
I'm trying to help. I'm now his dietitian, and I'm doing excellent stuff.
As you said that sentence, I did take the vape out of my mouth for at least 1 minute, so that's good.
All right, okay.
Leave it over there for 25 seconds.
Right,
okay,
so let's look at the core rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So here's Howda has been. So one thing I want to.
Okay, so we're going into the core rules, and I did. When I was scrolling through the PDF just to see where the sections end, I did see there was only 2 things on here. They're the only influential sources to players that pay attention to YouTubers. I think you'd be surprised at what sort of percentage it is of people who are aware or their play group is aware. Even if people don't necessarily actively watch anymore. Especially when you're busy, because I do so much old world stuff, I've kind of stopped watching other people's old world content. Just for the sake of, my downtime being something else. But maybe I'm not the norm in that situation. Not many people spend a lot of time, recording videos and stuff.
Highlight here is that when playing game using the Renegade Army Legacy Pack, the following core rules are added and affect all factions. And that really only applies to Howda, because Howda does affect 2 other things. That would be the Arachnorak Spider, as well as, I believe, the War Sphinx. Basically, Howda turns a behemoth and gives it the split profile chariot rule. And what that leads to is that a behemoth in combat uses the crew's weapon skill. So you have an Arachnorak Spider, weapon skill 2. You have in this case, the reason why I feel like it's critical, you have a Stegodon, weapon skill 2, because they're crewed by skinks and they're crewed by goblins, and of course skeletons. So you have these behemoths at weapon skill 2, really, and they're expensive models. They suck unless they had when they're being hit in combat. So yeah.
Okay, so he's saying use the weapon skill of not use the weapon skill of the crew, but the actual text says it's only when you're rolling to hit against them, because obviously you use your actual model's weapon skill when you're making attacks. Honestly, I don't hate this at all. Like, I'm okay with this being added to the game. I can see Landon says Mountain Miniatures shared that the only part of the comp he wouldn't adopt would be the change to Howda, because it would affect the core factions as well. That's fair. Yeah, that is fair. I think it feels pretty rough to play a massive monster and have it buffed up like that.
Okay, and that's all this does. It changes that.
So I went through a bunch of iterations, but essentially for Howda rules specifically, in combat, all enemy rolls to hit are made against the weapon skill of the controlling player's choosing from this model split profile. Personally, I think that should just be for all split profiles. Just choose the best weapon skill, whatever you want.
No, I think that would be a problem. Obviously, I'm playing High Elf, so that's the thing that's sort of at the front of my mind. But if I could run a, Archmage on Star Dragon, a lot of the downside would be nullified because I'd have a weapon skill 7 caster. So when you're attacking me, I can still run the triple save, a 4 up, 5 up, 5 up, or I could probably push it a bit further. Yeah, I could push it to a 3 up, 5 up, 5 up. Be weapon skill 7 defensively, and it also almost nullifies the use of a Lord on Dragon. Like, you get the best of both worlds in a too good way. But that's kind of a niche thing. I think having it for Howard doesn't make anything too good or too bad.
But it is prescribed that you have to use a certain weapon skill. So for these Howdah models only, you can choose. You can use the crew if you want. You can use the monster, whatever.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and next up, Dragged Along.
Dragged Along is the rule that was added to the big iconic chariots that used to go into units. So I mentioned them before, but it's the Cauldron of Blood. It's the Plague Furnace for Scapes, Cauldron of Blood's Dark Elves, Cauldron of Blood, Plague Furnace, and Screaming Bell for Skaven. And essentially, they're on 60 by 100 millimeters. The units that they used to go into are 25 millimeter frontages now. They went up from 20. So they don't fit neatly into units. And I suspect that the reason why that these are no longer allowed in units is because they were exclusively legacy faction base sizes. And I suppose they maybe didn't want to encourage people to invent a base size.
That's a good
and
point.
They didn't, or that they didn't want to create a base size for something that they couldn't sell you. Yeah. And so these things have been set up so now that they are, as long as they're within, I think, 3 inches of a unit, they can use the unit they're nearby, their movement characteristic to be dragged along. So that part of the rule still exists. You can still play them outside of a unit if you wish. But however, this adds rules that now allow them to once again be inside of the unit that they used to be a part of. So essentially,
hope is this becomes popular so that GW will do something about the legacy armies. I doubt they'd want a third proprietary source to be responsible for rules.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Boss Grand. I think that's a really solid shout. I think, yeah, in my eyes, I think that would be the best case scenario where the overwhelming community support pushes Games Workshop into actively supporting the factions. That would be really positive in my eyes. Obviously, so I've kind of talked about why I am against homebrew rules in general. From this point on, I think mostly I'm just going to treat them as if, we're just going to look at what the rules that are in and whether that I think they should be in. I don't feel like it's useful for me to be like, oh, and I don't think they should be in. So we're gonna look at it and say whether we think that it's good for the changes that are in, whether we think it needs to be tweaked, anything like that, and then we'll get onto some list writing as well, assuming we've got time, because I think there's always going to be some fun stuff to break, so we'll get to that.
As long as it's a character's mount, so that would be the 3 that I mentioned, because there's another one, I can't remember, it's like the Blood Rack something, for Dark Elves that never went into units. Blood Rack Shine, it never went into a unit, so it doesn't benefit from this, and it's not a character mount.
Are the ones I expect to see.
But essentially, if it has the large target special rule, which is an interesting situation that doesn't exist anywhere else, I set it up and went back, like lots of discussion around this. How do you handle that? Because a large target inside of a unit, now what? And essentially the way we landed on it was that you can still target that thing as usual, but I took rules from previous editions in which if you do hit it, it's now randomized between it and the unit. And I also set it up that you can't do a lookout sir roll for that thing. So it gets some benefit and protection.
You wouldn't need anything stopping you from making lookout sir, because you've got to be the same unit type, I think. Isn't that right? It's been a hot minute since I've looked at lookout sir. But yeah, I mean, it's not a problem to have that in, just to make things incredibly clear. I don't mind rules being written where they don't actually need to be written, but they just make it clear to the general populace so that they don't have to do extra levels. Fear Games Workshop will do the opposite if this becomes popular in spite. As much as I don't trust Games Workshop to do things correctly, I don't think they do things out of spite necessarily. They just don't necessarily make the right choices. Hey! Your brain is breaking. What you should do, buddy, is you should hop on stream and you should review me reviewing your stuff. How you doing, man? Buddha says, Games Workshop doesn't do spite, they do business. If it makes them money, they'll roll with it. That's the problem. They fucking don't. That's a brilliant prawn. Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah. I'm assuming this is Val, who I'm speaking to. I've already dropped 3 apologies for not responding to you for your, when you asked me to get back to you. So we're looking at the first 30 minutes of this so we can get sort of the fundamental understanding of why you're doing it. We're not going to look at the rest because one of the things I hate about React content is that it takes views away from the original. So everyone can go and watch the video outside of that. And then we're going to see if we can break something. Can't see how many things I fucked up now that you're looking at this. I think you've got a lot of people on it, and people have been very positive in the chat. I genuinely haven't looked at it yet, but people have been super positive about it. So we're gonna see. But yeah, like the 75 mil. I don't know why that didn't occur to me that you pointed out. Val watching Ed watching Val. Hell yeah. If you could stream this and then I can go back and do a VOD review of your stream, that would be amazing. We just get some Inception up in this.
For being in the unit that it perhaps didn't before, but not an overwhelming amount. And then also there's just some other T's and C's that you need to cover, namely lumbering wouldn't you normally allow it to be joined to the unit. So essentially words to or rules to sort of cancel that out, say that you can, there's an exception to that.
Appreciate that, bud.
And that's basically it.
So the goal is to have these units appear inside units so they're more iconic to how you think that they should play. And these are units that are already not seen at all anyway. So like this
Correct.
is like, and it's the same with the Howder thing, like with the exception of maybe the Sphinx. Did you see the Sphinx a bit? No, I don't think so. Like, so like these are just actually clarifications. So
these are very
I'm going to really reduce
changes.
my how dare you to. I mean,
reasonable.
well done for even caring. Like that's what I'm upgrading that to. Anyone who could take issue with this has got to be the driest individual on earth.
English. It'll be Canadian English.
I'm
Thank you
like,
very much.
cool, man. That's fine.
And I think hopefully one of the things I very purposely did is that a lot of this stuff is aesthetic in foundation. It's and when I ask people, especially in the beginning for feedback, I ask them, is there anything when you read this army list or these units and you think to yourself, that's dumb, or like that's stupid? Because I remember before launch, I was thinking in my head, I know that our base sizes are going up. I know that these are legacy factions. How are they going to handle?
See you later.
How are they going to handle these units that go inside? Because this plan's one of them. And and then when I read this rule, it was kind of the worst case scenario for me personally. And anyway, so this is just writing that. And then another controversial thing is that you'll see is I've had to, as a result, create a new base size that doesn't exist. This has caused some people some stress. So I've added a little italic here, which will be in classic writing fashion, ignored by everybody. Mm-hmm. But essentially all it says is if you don't rebase your model, who cares? It's fine.
I don't think anyone
leave enough space. So assume the model now has a 75 millimeter frontage, even if it's on a 60 millimeter base, when it's in the unit. And essentially, you can use a spacer. You can just move guys around it on the base. However, you got to fudge it to make it work.
Blue tack it on.
Blue tack it on. This is literally a game, folks, that in the rules, it says just nudge the models.
Yeah.
Okay, that is an official rule of Old World. Just nudge it. So
you know that it was written and play tested with no uniform base sizes. You know that, right? Have I ever told you this?
I did not know that.
Oh well, yeah. There you go. There's some information for you.
Which is impressive because they did very thoroughly go back and change up base sizes. So
they did go back and do, yeah, but it was a last minute panic. They were like, people are going to lose it if we don't do base sizes.
Persistence, you're on the ball.
Yeah, and that was why.
And let me know in the comments below what you'd have thought.
All right, so shall we get into the nitty gritty then?
Okay, all right. That's not the nitty gritty.
3D print. Hell yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's like super easy.
I should have deep dived Siren this because.
All right, cool. So that's we've gone through the sort of general thoughts. Let's look at because it's taken 55 minutes to get through the first 30 minutes or 25 minutes, and as mentioned a couple of times now, I do want to send people to the actual video. It is linked in the description. So we're going to go from this portion of the video where we get to hear their motivations, which was surprisingly compelling. They're doing a good job of convincing me. But we're going to move on to looking actively at the PDF. So let's see what we've got here. Cool. A legacy pack, the Renegade legacy pack. Obviously the preface, we've heard Val explain his thoughts. Don't feel like we need to do that. Shout out dedication page again. And then here are the rules that we've looked at already. So all good stuff so far. So. The thing that I did open this to look at was, do they have the originals? No. So I have got the actual books here so I can flick between the two. What changes have we got? So we're starting off with, you've still got the 0-1 Sorcerer Prophet or Infernal Castellan per 1,000 points. That's fine. That's just the standard Lord restrictions. You missed the reasoning on removing some of the restrictions, which was really compelling. Okay. Thanks for the heads up. Let's go back to it. Glad I didn't close the video.
This is a deep dive for 7 factions. Don't worry. This won't be 3 hours. Maybe 2.5.
It can only be 1 more hour. So.
Hour 15. Okay. I'm already winded, so let's rock. Are we on to the Chaos Dwarves army list?
We're on the Chaos Dwarf Legacy army list. Yes. So the one that we're looking at currently is the original one. Which obviously Games Workshop put out, right? So to be clear, what is your intention here? You intend to change which units can be taken in armies or just FAQ stuff and kind of neaten it up?
Yeah, so the intention here is actually now Chaos Dwarves have access to 2 army lists. So you can use whichever one that you wish. There's the original Chaos Dwarf Legacy army list, and now there's also the Chaos Dwarf Renegade army list. So this is the original one that we were working off of, and I think it is. There's the other. On the original, you see a couple hallmarks here of a legacy list. 1+ unit of Infernal Guard. So that just means that Chaos Dwarf army has to have Chaos Dwarfs in it.
Yeah, but
sure, that's fine. And I think I want to address this because I removed all of the 1+ units from every single list. And the reason I did that was, if these are the only lists that we have forever, then there might come a day where you think to yourself, well, maybe I don't want to have a unit of Infernal Guard in my army list. Maybe I want to run an entire Hobgoblin army. Maybe I want to do some other stuff. And then people will say, well, then there's going to be armies that never have Chaos Dwarves. I'm like, okay, well, what business of that is yours?
They are the sassiest podcast in the old world space, and I do love them.
Shut your damn mouth, and keep your nose out of my business. Right?
But seriously, like literally doing this, I found my Warhammer libertarian. I swear to God, I was like, what? Who's to say that I have to take this particular core unit every single time when there's other core units to be able to have fun and experiment with?
That's right.
I also provide
Val, not in the pocket of big army list. Not in the pocket.
The other thing about Chaos Dwarves is that you feel very much motivated to bring a Black Orc Wyvern and Black Orcs in core. So we can go to the Renegade list now if you like.
Yes, perfect.
All right, cool. I think we can probably move on to this part here. But I don't know that I love having 2 lists to pick between. I mean, it's kind of just is what it is. But it almost feels like you then get to pick and choose which is better for you. I don't know why that feels a little bit wrong, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm assuming that people will go into it with gamey intentions, which is maybe an unfair situation. But as said, we're talking about it as if it is here, and we're just going to look at the changes, see how we feel about them. So, characters, we've got the Sorcerer Prophet, Infernal Castellan per 1,000 points. So again, normal Lord split, that's fine. Demon Smith Sorcerer, Infernal Seneschals, Hobgoblin Khans. They had a restriction. No, it's the Wolves that have the restriction. Black Orc Boss, not 1 per. Yep, that's fine. They don't have the. Have they just taken out the render, the Torok? Oh, it's in rare. I don't think this is not a game balance thing. I don't know that this is a problem, but I don't think I like the Torok in rare because it is a character. So obviously, one of the things that people complain about with the game as it currently stands is that you're too hero hammer, because you can have 50% characters, you can have like a lord and a wizard. In this case, you could just have, the lord is the wizard. But being able to take like tooled up magic item wearing characters in rare, I don't think feels quite right. But that's not an issue from a game balance perspective. I don't think it makes them too good. It just feels weird. His argument was it's very similar to the Shaggoth. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. That is a good argument against what I'm saying. Okay. I don't think this is super egregious, so I'm just going to leave that at that. Core, so you can take Infernal Guard and Cutthroats, that's good. 0-1 Black Orc Mob, that's solid, that's the same as it was. And then 0-1 Infernal Iron Sworn if your general is an Infernal Castellan. Okay. So obviously it gets rid of the 1+ Infernal Guard, which is good. I think he did talk about not having the capped units, which is fine. But yeah, so that's solid. What's the leadership of the Infernal Castellan? Can you have a Sorcerer, Prophet, and... Okay, so it's 10 as well. That's fine, then. Okay, interesting. I don't hate that. Because I think if you're wanting to take an expensive unit of infantry, core is the place to do it. So that's... Like, there's a definite trade-off. You take a relatively expensive character, 125 base plus whatever you put on them, and then you take them here. Okay, I don't hate that. Shaggoths can't declare challenges. That's the only thing that separates it from a character. Okay, no, also a good point, yeah. I think it feels like that falls in the realm of slightly weird, but not necessarily a problem. Just odd to me. Steve says you're putting your 40k brain into Old World again. It'll be purely for fun. That is super reasonable. I respect that. Obviously, I'm looking at things more from a competitive level. But I love that people are looking here for fun. There's a precedent with a troll hag from Orcs and Goblins. I'm glad I'm doing this live, because I think if I was sat at home reading this, I'd be like, hate that. You're all giving me really compelling points as to why I shouldn't be annoyed. So that's good. Special, all of the same stuff. Were renders in special? I feel like they were in rare before. No, they were in special. Cool. So that's the same. 0-1 Iron Demon per 1,000 points. That's the same. War Machines. Yep, that's the same. Cool. 0-2 per 1,000 is basically not a cap. So I don't hate that stays in. And also making as few changes as possible. Yeah, that's fair. Torok, we've talked about. The Dreadquake Mortar, the Hell Cannon. I almost wish that they just removed this from the list for everyone else's own good. But that's not in the spirit of what they're going for here. 0-1 Hobgoblin Wolf Riders per Khan taken. That feels weird, still having that restriction in. Like, I maybe would have been tempted to move them to special with no restriction. I don't know about lore-wise, whether they're like elite guard that only ride around with the Hobgoblin Khan. I don't think you should put them in core, because I think they would invalidate everything else. But I think if you had them in special, they'd be easier to take. And then 0-1 Chaos Giant per 1,000 points. I feel like there was a... obviously, I'm not an old-school Chaos Dwarf player, but I feel like there used to be a giant you could take for Chaos Dwarves, right? I don't think that's an issue. I think out of all of the monsters they could have put in, this is the one that makes the most sense to me. Yeah, this kind of feels super reasonable. Now, I think it would be too good. Sorry, I've got hiccups. I think it would be too good. I wouldn't have been mad to see the Warpfire Dragon in here. God damn. Where have these hiccups come from? Yeah, I wouldn't be mad to see the Warpfire Dragon in, just from like a theme inclusion. That kind of feels right for the army, but I think it would be too powerful, so I'm pretty okay with not doing it. Siege Giant! I knew there was something. For people who still have the model. Love that. No, I mean, changes where you can use old kit is good. One of the things that Games Workshop did that almost made me quit Warhammer was I was playing competitive 9th edition. One of the lists was buggy spam. And I didn't have the full 9. I had 6 of one type of buggy and 6 of another type of buggy. And they nerfed it so that you could only use 3 of each type of buggy. So some people had 6 of 2 types of buggy, so 12 buggies that they just couldn't use. So that was like 200 quid's worth of models. No, 400 quid's worth of models, maybe, that were just unusable. That feels really rough when you've bought stuff from Games Workshop and you can't use it again. Noel says, Hiccups cure, name 10 bald men out loud. Okay. Northern Lion. Oh, hey, I'm cured. I think I had some mild indigestion, so nailed a couple of Rennie. Shame it's not so easy for other missing units as there aren't always easy comparables. That's fair. I assume they haven't just added in wholesale new units, because people would have mentioned that. Ed's Bucky spam almost made me quit Warhammer. Here's the thing. It needed to be nerfed. It was unfun to play against. It was an oppressive list and it was bullshit. I'm just annoyed at the way they did it. Just make everything cost 15% more, so it was like basically unplayable. That would have been more consumer friendly. But that's an argument for another time. And it definitely did need to be fixed. Lewis, the guy from Guess Who. Yeah, that's another two. Perfect. So, okay, so everything here seems super reasonable. Again, and this is not like Chaos Dwarf specific lore or anything like that. I'm kind of surprised that you can't take the regular, like, level 2 sorcerers as battle standard bearers. I'm sure there's probably no precedent for it, but it just feels like it would be right. You played Manny that weekend. Oh, I'm sorry. Fighty Lord on Bull is good. What do you mean? So, so these are rules changes. Okay, the short section. So options add, you can get full plate. Can they not get full plate already? Because they're kind of terrible or not usable, I haven't looked at them. Wow! You can't take full plate on the commanders. That's wild. Okay, so you have to take magical full plate. 3 points. I think this should be 6. Even though they start with heavy armor. Or like 4, because it's normally... Anyway. Quibbling over the points for a character's full plate, and when I'm saying like +1 or +3 points, this is fine. This is not a problem. Maybe mounted on a Bale Taurus or Great Taurus. What the fuck? Okay, that's a change. So they're both T5. I think one of them gives +1 toughness and one of them doesn't, right? So +4 wounds for both of them. 120 points. So how cheap can you have like a Griffin equivalent character? Because they have Flying 9, D3 Stomps. They are both behemoths with Furious Charge and like a mixed bag of abilities. Right. This is like the immediately in the first thing I'm like, can we break this? So for 180 points. Oh my god, that's not okay. 180 points. 189 points. You can have an Infernal Seneschal with 6 wounds at T5, so already better than a Griffin. You've got a 3-up armor save from a shield and the full plate that you've just bought. You've got a great weapon as well for your attacks. That might be an issue. That's under 200 points for a Griffin-style character. That's something. Okay, maybe we start there if we're going to try and break something. Yeah, you can only be mounted on the better one if you're the Lord level, but I think immediately I'm like, oh, what if you just take the cheap one? And Griffin is a behemoth, great point equivalent. You're getting actual AP on those stomps, which is really nice. I actually don't know that I'd feel like this was as much of a problem if you couldn't take the full plate. Because that gets you up to a 3-up save, and then you can build in some sort of... I guess there's no sort of repeatable ward save or regen, so maybe it's not an issue. You do get ward against flaming attacks, but that's kind of just whatever. This change is on notice, I think. 185 points, or 189 points is, I think, too cheap to have a spammable character. Let me just have a look at how much the level 1 character is. 85. So that's 205, but you can't get anything else. What's the save on the Taurus? Is it a 4-up or a 5-up? It's equipped with... Oh, it doesn't have a save. Okay, so yeah, the full plate as well, getting you up to a 3-up save against shooting is... You can get Mantle of Stone BT6, you 100% can. Maybe the Seneschal shouldn't be able to take the Taurus. Yeah, I think that's probably right, Tonk. I think that might be right for abuse. As a man who immediately went, I want to run 5 of these. Obviously, comboing it with Ruler 3, you'd probably go 3 of these and then, like, a Sorcerer Prophet. Because they're so cheap. 189 points. It's a lot of flying T6 for not a lot of points. So if you're going super cheap, it's flying T5, but that's still pretty reasonable because you're still, you're still a behemoth. You've still got a lot of attacks. You've still got AP on your stomps. You've got Swift Stride. You cause terror. Yeah, I think having the Great Taurus be able to be ridden by the hero level character is probably too much. Because if you go back up... then again, you can do it on the Demon Smith Sorcerer for not many more points. But then the save is worse. Mantle is only 30 points and very common, and take that every time. Yeah, 100% Jacob, it's really good. It just depends whether you want to fit like an extra model in. So I think if you're going for the Sorcerer Prophet... you might need to go for just 3, depending on how you equip them. But the hero is T5 basic. Is there Sorcerer T4? Oh, that's a big difference. Good spot, Tonk. And Wooter. We both got that. Yeah. So I think that actually might be an issue. Because this would be T5. Okay. So immediately, I don't think the Seneschal should be able to ride the Taurus. I think that's probably too good for the points. 189 points is cheap for that. Kadai Fireborn get 3 wounds and they get Born of Fire, which is the ward save against flaming attacks. Yeah, that's fine. You could make them immune to flaming attacks, and I don't think that would be an issue. I think they're also like stupidly expensive, Kadai. I think they're like 61 points. It has been a hot minute since I looked. Oh no, they're 41 points. Okay. 41 points. Weapon skill 4, strength 5, T4 with 3 wounds, 3 attacks. Movement 6. With a regen? That makes them pretty good. I mean, they only have hand weapons, so their attacks are dog shit. And they don't have any armor bane. So actually, maybe they're not that good, because they just hit really... Like, they hit hard, but then you just make your saves. With 3 wounds, I think they need to go up 10 points. Can Bretts have a hero ride a similar amount with Fly? Not a similar toughness, because we're talking 6 wounds at T5 with a 3-up save. They're like Drolls without stupidity and without great weapons. Yeah. I actually don't think this is a problem, because they only have hand weapons. So it's like Rat Ogres. You never see anyone playing Rat Ogres. In fact, let's have a look at the points comparison. I think Rat Ogres are in a very similar... Okay, 48 points. But they're, weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 4, 3 attacks. They have frenzy as well, which is not too bad, like, in terms of an issue. They do have armor bane, though, and you don't see them. So you've got +1 attack, you've got armor bane. I think Kadai Fireborn are probably still okay. But this is one that maybe needs work, or like it needs to be on notice. So I think the Seneschals just straight up shouldn't be allowed to ride the Taurus. I think this is too good. I think the Kadai Fireborn are on notice. I think they're probably not an issue, but they're just worth keeping an eye on. And that's it for the rules changes. Okay, cool. I don't think there was anything particularly super egregious there other than the commanders. These 2 rules together is probably too good. Oh, and you can make one of them a BSB as well. Oh, it's like having a fucking a mobile BSB. That is too good. That really is too good. It is a real... it is good that you can't take multiple ward saves or get a regen save in here on this army. I do like that the Castellan lets you take Iron Sworn as... Yeah, I really like the Iron Sworn as core. I think that's good. I think more armies should have this, but it should be capped to infantry only. I don't think you should be able to take, like, Dragon Princes in core without some, like, serious restrictions. Like, you're an all-mounted detachment, which is, comes with its own restrictions. So, yeah, okay. Pretty much just this is a problem, and this is keep an eye on it. Is it better than a Royal Pegasus? It's its own thing, but if you're putting a low-level character on it, you're a lot squishier. Like, keep in mind that Bretonnian characters routinely run ridiculously expensive. Like, you're running 320 to 400 points, depending on what you're equipped with. Demons of Chaos. This is going to be confusing, because Demons of Chaos are confusing. Empire Greatsword is called, might actually get them used. Yeah, 100%. I could see that being reasonable. I probably still wouldn't, but it's more. I'm more willing to fill up the points on them, right? So demons, 50% of your army may be spent on greater demons. Per 1,000 points and per unit. Okay, so you can't just take a Bloodthirster and then no Khorne units. Is that an additional restriction? I feel like that's a ridiculous. Yeah, that's an additional restriction. Interesting. I assume that. Oh yeah, they're just making everything else less restricted. Okay, that's fine. And then the same restriction here, and that's the same as well. Okay, I do not hate that at all. I can live with that, because they're taking away the weird, like, if your general is this, it unlocks this. Empire Great Swords and Core are just bad Knights of the Realm on foot, right? Yeah. No, you can only have one per 1,000 points. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, no, it is just a 0 to 1. Good catch there. Is running 2 Greater Demons a problem? Because they're so squishy, maybe not. If you can make them really tanky, maybe it would be, because you can run them kind of cheaply. Don't think the list needed help. Vampire Counts, for instance, is top tier. Yeah, Vampire Counts doesn't need help, but I think every other one, realistically, could do with tweaking. This Force Org chart for demons is so much better. Yeah, I think that's, like, already just looking here, this looks much better to me. So, characters, we've got, you can take more Greater Demons, but you're locked to actually having to bring the other units, which I think is good. The Heralds are the same, which is where they've taken the restriction from, and then the Demon Princes are 1 per 1,000 points, which I think is fine. I'm not saying you should restrict them more, but I wouldn't be surprised to see just 1 Demon Prince per army. It feels a bit odd to have them working together, but also I don't think they need to be nerfed. Core, you can take any of the general infantry there. Good stuff. If your general is a demon of... Oh! Okay, so you can take Fleshhounds, Nurglings, Seekers, Blue Horrors, and Brimstone Horrors. Is that... okay, cool. So this is still unlocking some things, but you're leaving the main units open to anyone. I think that's a good change. It still stops you from being like, oh, I think Nurglings are the most efficient choice, or Fleshhounds are the most efficient choice, but I'm not going to run a general of that, or any characters of that sort of type. I just want to fill out with the most efficient datasheet. Keeps the flavour there a little bit better. I think this is a good change. It's less restrictive. You get to take the special Khorne stuff if you've got a Bloodthirster general, while still going, I actually really want to run some Demonettes or something like that. Cool. Special is just the other things that you'd expect to see in Special, but nothing is locked to Rare, sorry. So they've taken a chunk out of here. Yeah. So the stuff in Rare is the stuff that should be in Rare, basically. Cool. That makes sense. And then 0 to 1 Skull Cannon per 1,000 points, which is what it is currently. Yep, that's fine. And then the other stuff. I'm still a little salty that Soul Grinders you can't take 2 of, but that's fine. That would be, that would just be a straight buff. They could implement it in the same way as the Arcane Journal options. So yeah, that's one of the issues with homebrew stuff in terms of getting it added to list builders, because it's additional work for people who don't necessarily get paid to do stuff. Oh, he's in discussion with army builders. Cool, there we go. That deals with that issue. The last minute of the video is in the talks. That's good stuff. That is good stuff. So, oh god, this is so many. Right, so if we go on to page 32. Let's have a look here. So demonic is, they have a ward save against wounds suffered that were caused by non-magical attacks, and we're going to delete that. So they just have a 5-up ward at all times. I think that's okay because of the power level of the book, but I think just giving an entire army a ward save is concerning. I don't think it's an issue here, because I don't... Unless they make some weird changes. Oh, Swift Stride on Fleshhounds. I think that's too much. That's concerning to me. Yeah. Okay. So I think this needs to be on watch. I don't think it's a problem just because I think the army isn't too strong, but this has a potential to be an issue. Demon Prince add the regen. This is fine. This is just bringing them in line with the Warriors of Chaos one. I don't know why they didn't have it. They have warp spawned, right? I think so. They don't get the regen against magical attacks. So I think it's literally just making them the same, and they don't have items, so they're still worst. The demon save's been too good in the past. Yeah, we're less tethered to AP. In the way that high strength was before, so maybe it's not as much of an issue, but it's... would I like to see the ward be a 5-up or 6-up against magic? That's a really good suggestion, Fodrake. I think that's a really solid choice. If you do come back and see this, that's not my suggestion, but as Fodrake says, a 5-up against non-magical attacks or a 6-up against magical attacks, I think would be a good middle ground. Solar Warden, when you pay 300 points for your Link Horrors and a Ruby Ring hits them, you'll see why a 5-up is fine. We can't look at individual units, right? Because it's always like the most abusable thing that causes the issue. Magic attacks have become too common with every other army having them on all troops. I don't think that's an accurate statement, but they are more common than they used to be. I'm aware of that. All Greater Demons add Close Order, so they kind of already have this just by default of making the game work, but fixing this here is good, I think. Yeah, Swift Stride on Fleshhounds, I think that's possibly a problem. Fleshhounds are 2 wound, and now they have a 5-up ward against everything. Khorne's right up at the top, isn't it? I might be wrong about this one, but I'm concerned that giving Fleshhounds a move 8 heavy cavalry with Swift Stride, with a 6-up, 5-up, T4, 2 wounds, 2 attacks each. The attacks are bad. They're only hand weapons with Armor Bane. But, I don't know. That concerns me, especially because you can Vanguard forwards. And bias as you have your Daemons army out. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's not a problem, but I look at that and I go, that feels like it might be an issue. So, probably one to watch here. That might make them too good, because they're pretty cheap as well, right? 32 points for a 2-wound heavy cav. That is something. Palanquin changed base size just so you can fit it into units. That makes more sense to me. Swift Stride making Impetuous worse. That's true, but that is true. Yeah, that's fair. I think if you're playing Khorne, you probably want to get into the enemy as fast as possible. Is it better than Double Dragon? Not Double Dragon in the game, but the old arcane game, Double Dragon. I've never played that. I'll have to look it up after stream. People are surprised they don't have it anyway. That's funny. Nurglings add scouts. I don't think there's any other way to get scout in the book, is there? No. How do I feel about Nurglings having scout? How do I feel about Nurglings having scout for no points increase? 45 points for 7 wounds. I think this might be... This might lead to some frustration. I don't know if it's too good, but if you can get 3 bases in someone's back lines, just tying up something so that it's literally never going to get away because they're so wounds dense, that might be a problem. This is the only change that is iffy for me. Yeah, that jumps out at being maybe a bit too much. I don't know if I like that one. It's not like an immediate, like, oh, no, this can't happen. But, you know, just put it on watch. Hellflayer, giving it AP1 impact hits. It's probably fine. Let's have a look at the Hellflayer. Is it? It's not the one that gives you 1,000,000 impact hits, is it? 2d6 plus 1. Ooh, I don't know. It is 145 points, though. It's hard to conceptualize that one. So it's strength 4, AP 1. There's no armor being, because that's the steed only. It's a swift stride, light chariot. The fact that I don't know what any of these units do is very telling. Yeah, that's partially because demons are not in a good spot, but also partially because they all have weird names. So you gotta double check which one's which. It's like, oh, which of the 3 kind of similar chariots is it? I think they locked the Hellflayer to rare. Can you take it as a mount? Because that's normally where these sorts of things are ripe for abuse, right? No, okay, so you can't put a character on it. I'm immediately less bothered. If you could put a character on it and, like, stack defenses, not that you can necessarily do that with demons, it becomes more of an issue. Can't be a mount, it's rare too. Okay, yeah, that's probably fine. Like, maybe there's not really any way to tweak this. It either has AP or it doesn't. I don't think giving it Armor Bane is enough. This is probably fine. Yeah, it's probably fine. It feels like Slaanesh should struggle to wound you if you're tough, but it should cut through your armor save. So this kind of fits on theme. Blue Horror's given them skirmishes. Val, why have you done this? I can't believe you've done this. Do I think it's a problem? No. But skirmishes. Just stop giving things skirmish. Skirmish is such a poorly written rule. This is... I'm not being super serious. This is not a problem, but just having skirmish is... it breaks the brain. Hopefully this gets Games Workshop to update their legacy list. That would be the absolute ideal. Adding skirmish breaks the game because the skirmish rule doesn't work. That's exactly what I'm saying, Entropy. That is my only issue with this. I don't think they're wrong to do it. I just, every time I see skirmish, I'm like, oh no! More bullshit. I think the call-out was because they don't do anything. Yeah. Skull Cannon. It doesn't have 360 line of sight. Yeah, this is... Oh, an actual nerf to the army. This is in line with what we're expecting to see, because they didn't nerf... They only specifically nerfed the non-legacy versions of this. So I don't mind that, but also, it is funny to see a nerf to an army like Demons. Interesting. I think there are some in here that give me pause. This, I think, is maybe a little bit too good. The 5-up and then 6-up against magical attacks feels good to me. This one... I might be wrong, but I'm a little concerned about. And then this one I think is probably too good as well. But yeah, interesting. For the number of rules changes, I don't hate that too much. I'd be worried it makes Games Workshop just release the legacy lists. I mean, if they deleted them from the site, it wouldn't make any difference because we've all got them downloaded anyway, and someone would host them centrally. It wouldn't make much of a difference. All right, let's go to Lizardmen then. Let's have a look at Lizardmen. Wait, no Dark Elves? Oh, Dark Elves are at the end. Let's go alphabetical. Let's go Dark Elves. So, Dark Elf, Renegade rule changes. Murderous in the first round of combat, a model with this special rule may re-roll any rolls to wound of a natural one. I think this is too good. Like, so this is basically choppers, but you don't even have to charge. So like when I'm running around with a Lord on a dragon using a great weapon, I get to re-roll. Like I'm going to be wounding most things on 2s, re-rolling 1s. Even in like a dragon fight, wounding on 4s, re-rolling 1s. I think this is too good. I don't think this should be in. As much as, like, Old Murderous is terrible, I think this might be too much for boost. Character mounts. Add Dark Pegasus for 35 points. I've heard that it was a terror. Dark Elves, can they get to a 2-up save? I don't think they can get to a 2-up save. So you can get full plate. I guess you can get a 2-up save against shooting with the Sea Dragon Cloak. So the Lord would be... What do you get from this? I think it's +1 toughness, +1 wound. No, it's just +1 wound. So you're still T3. You get an extra wound. And obviously your 360-degree charge. I have heard the horror of these, but I don't know that I understand it, honestly. An army-wide war doesn't an honourable army would think of doing, especially with most models having a 3-up save and a spell to get a 5-up regen. Exactly. I'm glad we're on the same page. Gwillem says countercharge. More peg knights, yay. I don't know that this would be too much of a problem. Because you can't really tool the character up to be too scary, question mark? I don't know about this one. I'd have to, like, fully delve into the characters to see if I can make that work. It was horrible with the old 8th edition Pendant of Caliph. What was the old 8th edition Pendant of Caliph? What was the effect of it? Because I have heard that it was very good. People have said. But I don't actually know why. Manticore toughness +2, taking it up to a T5. That's fine. It annoys me that Manticores aren't consistent across the board. So I think having this as a T5 mount is super reasonable for the points you spend, which is 130, I think. 130. Yeah. It's better than a Griffin, because it doesn't have to use a Venomous Tail attack. It's otherwise very much exactly the same. Pendant was an inverse ward, so strength 3, you get a 4-up, strength 4, you get a 3-up. Oh, that's cool. Ward was what your wound roll was, so strength 4 on a 3-up ward. Yeah, that's pretty bullshit. You can make a bunch of cheap, untargetable noble darts. Not sure if it's too powerful. Yeah, I think we're not necessarily in the era of cheap characters that are looking to do that, but I think it's set up to be a potential issue if that's ever what we're looking for. I'm not sure that I'm particularly bothered about the Dreadlord Dark Pegasus. That said, it might just be something that I'm not fully understanding, so maybe I'll go to an event and someone will kick my face in with 6 Dreadlord / Masters on Pegasus and I'll be real sad. Like I say, Manticore, I like this change, just getting him up to T5. I was talking to Ian, who I played at Reaver Games, for anyone who doesn't know. Played him at the Team England Scrim, and he was liking the Manticore. I don't hate it, although the T4 is pretty rough. It's worse than a Griffin since it's a bigger base and has to take the Willful Beast test. No. Yeah, maybe. But you don't have to take like a non-AP attack. I think it's kind of 1A, 1B. The Willful Beast can be a bonus if you want to give them frenzy. I mean, +1 attack is not too much. I think, yeah, you're right. It's probably a little bit worse. But I still don't hate the Manticore, especially when they're at T5. Goad. Yeah, but Goad is only for the Beastmaster. It's not a rule on the Manticore. Goad is solid, though. Cauldron of Blood, changing the base size, and Blessing of Cain, changed the power level of 3. Let's have a look here. So you're casting it, you need a 6 on the dice. I don't think that's a problem. No, that's probably okay. I mean, I maybe would have rather have changed the casting value to an 8, because bound spells you're quite often seeing at a bound level of 2, so maybe sticking with that but making the spell easier to go off would be better. But I don't know that that's necessarily a game-breaking change. Callum says it was a problem in 8th because the Sea Dragon Cloak was straight up an increase in combat and shooting, so a load of 1+ save peg characters running about. Yeah, fair. I don't think you've got anything similar here. That's probably okay. It was to match the casket / anvil. Okay, yeah, okay. Fair enough. I don't have strong feelings on this either way. I think it's kind of whatever. What are we looking for? He's changed Dragged Along to make it actually work. Yes, yeah, that is something. Like, Dragged Along is so silly. Being able to march at 24 inches but only ever charge 8 inches is incredibly dumb. What was I looking for? There was something in here that I wanted. Oh, yeah, War Hydra. Yeah, why the fuck is the War Hydra's bites AP 0? That's pretty rough. Although it is multiple wounds too. I would have maybe preferred to see Armorbane 2 instead of AP1 Armorbane 1. Just because that's more in line with what we've got in the game at the moment. Serrated Maws are usually Armorbane 2, Multiple Wounds 2. You're getting a lot of attacks with this, right? So you're getting 5 attacks with this. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's not the end of the world. That's more of a quibble than anything else. You never get all the attacks. That is true. It's not a problem, but just sort of like making it in line with what we've actually got in the game at the moment. I think Serrated Maw should be Armorbane 2, Multiple Wounds 2 with no AP, just to keep everything consistent, right? Lose attacks from wounds. Yeah. Like I say, I'm not arguing that it's a problem. I just think I'd prefer to see it kept more consistent with the base game. Okay, so we've done Dark Elves, good stuff. So next up we've got Lizardmen, and I'm really curious to see what we've done with Lizardmen. I'm sure he's going to be able putting the slan in the unit because that's something that everyone wants to see. So here we go. If we look at what we've got, so that's an odd choice. 0 to 1 slan per 1.5k points. That just feels weird, honestly. I don't know why you'd bother. Maybe there's a specific balancing reason. I think I'd just put it at not put to 1 or 1 per 1,000. I don't know that having 2 slan, unless he's changed them, I don't know that having 2 slan at 2,000 points is an issue, but maybe he's tweaked them, so we'll have a look at those. It means no stubble slan at 2k. Yeah, like, is in the game at the moment, that's not a problem, but maybe it would be too oppressive, so. Old Bloods, 1 per 1,000 points. Uncapped from Priests, that's very good. Having Priests and Old Bloods in the same category is very odd. Core, Warriors, no longer 1+, that's good. Skirmishers and Jungle Swarms, and then you can take a unit of Temple Guard if your general is a Slam Mage Priest. I think... Okay, so that's adding a restriction to the Temple Guard, but it's a thematic restriction, so I don't hate it. He buffs Slan. Okay, fair enough. If he buffs Slan, then, you know, maybe there's a world where we don't do that. It's a lore thing, I guess. They're rare, but not super rare. Yeah, that's fair. And, like, building in scalability for larger friendly games is super reasonable as well. I don't hate that. Special, Chameleon Skinks, Croxigore, Temple Guard, Cold One Riders, Pterodon and Riptactyl Riders. Oh, he's going to have to be shot. I'm sorry. He didn't capitalise the R in Riders. Bastillodons and Stegodons. Oh, okay, so Stegodons are out, so you can do like a true blue monster mash. That's interesting. How do I feel about that? I don't know. That means you can go 1,500 points in. You could do that anyway. I think that's probably okay. Because you're probably going to spend 1,000 points on characters anyway, right? So it doesn't realistically change how many points you spend on Stegodons. Temple Guard were added to special. They weren't in the list apart from the one you can take in court. Are they really not? Oh, wow. Good catch. So if you wanted to take 2 units of Temple Guard, you just straight up can't. That's funny. Yeah, okay. That's a good change. Only young Stegs in the special, yeah. That's my my stage name is Young Steg. And then rare, you've got the Salamanders, Razordon, Troglodon, and just Stegodon. And yeah, the BSB, all good stuff there. I don't think Skink Chiefs can be BSBs in the main book, right? Nope, talking out my ass, they can be. I've just never seen one. Skink Chief, BSB... Oh, they can't take the Stegodon mounts. That's why you don't see them. Page 5. Oh, no, you can be on a Stegodon. Okay. Maybe that's a world that we should see. Skink Chiefs on Stegodons. I guess you struggle to layer defenses enough to make it a good choice, but that is interesting. Do we think these are going to be used at tournaments? Just make an Empire list, but it's really tempting to go back and finish my Dwarfs. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. We're at the... This is the watershed moment of Old World. Leadership 6 BSB, woo. Yeah, but you've got Cold-Blooded, which is a really good rule, right? It's usually because the Scarvet and Connoisseur can also be a BSB. That is very fair, which is just better in every way. Okay, this seems fine. Is there anything here that I disagree with? This, you said that they've buffed the Slan, they've uncoupled, they've added Temple Guard. I think this feels pretty reasonable. Yeah, Biscuits. I do like that change, uncoupling. It's changed Cold-Blooded. Ooh, okay. Tough Bastard, double great unclean ones with 500 points for scouting Nurglings is fine. Yeah, that might be an issue. I don't think double great unclean ones is necessarily an issue, but with 500 points for scouting Nurglings, that might push it into unreasonable territory. Especially because they always get a 5-up ward. You can't even pick them off. So Cold-Blooded is now, when required to make a leadership or break test, replace this special rule with, yeah. So, you always roll an extra d6 and you always discard the highest result. That's every test that you use your leadership for, right? Between leadership and break tests. I think it's only break test that is clarified to not be a leadership test. Is that right? Is there anything I'm missing? Hefflefinger. Old Cold-Blooded, my stage name. So that's a pretty good one. We should do some sort of comedy double act. I'm thinking like a Morecambe and Webb style. Okay, let's have a look. So Slan movement changed to 4. Yeah. I guess that's because you can't use fly while you're in the unit. And I think they've got a movement of 1? 2. Yeah, okay, so that just means that they can join the unit and make it work. Change them to monstrous infantry. I think that's a reasonable change to have them back to. I don't really understand why they were nerfed. Screams. Okay. Can't use Cold-Blooded for rally either currently. Okay, that's good to know. I think Screams actually might be a leadership test, but I'm also not sure how they're worded, Tunk. So delete large target, delete close order, and add Wisdom of the Ancients, Wisdom of the Old Ones and Palanquin. Okay, so like this bit here, I think is all super reasonable. I don't hate any of this. What have we got as well? Once per turn, you can reroll one of the d6 when making a casting roll, and you also... Oh god, that's such a strong... Like, I know they're meant to be good, but that is a strong buff. You know 5 spells, and you get to reroll a single d6. And it's not on a failed roll, which means that you could theoretically do it to avoid a miscast. I think this is too much. I think this is way too much. Like, this makes them so good. Let's just have a look at Palanquin. May join a unit with Guardian special rules by having fly. As long as the front rank has at least 4 models, they may be placed in the second rank and still confer benefits. That's fine. I believe that's how it used to be. As long as it's not in a fighting rank, they may cast and dispel as normal, even if engaged in combat, but may not cast assailment spells. Yes, that is good. I like that. For the purpose of shooting and casting spells, it has 360-degree vision, ignores models in unit for drawing line of sight. Is that how it used to be? That sounds probably how it used to be. The 360 line of sight might be too good. But also, screw it. I don't think the things that they're buffing are going to be a problem. It couldn't be used to prevent a miscast. Oh, if it couldn't be used to prevent a miscast, I think it'd be okay. I think just make it the high elf one. Like, so I don't think they should know +1 spell and have the reroll. Like, the double up feels a bit much. I think just like copy and pasting the high elf one is probably good. You're only taking 1 wizard, right? So you just take Lore Familiar, so you know the spells you want to anyway. I don't think... I feel like these 2 buffs together and reverting all of the nerfs and being able to bunk them in a unit, I think that combination might push them over the line. Slan should be superior to High Elf Wizards. Yeah, I agree, but I think it already might be able to bunker in here. I just feel like it's too much to get both of those. I think rerolling one of the d6 might be too much. That's toned down to what they used to get. Yeah, but they used to be previous There used to be previous editions of the game were more magic. This is not a magic focused edition, right? Then we haven't got the colleges of magic or anything like that. 5-spell High Elf Wizard is 200 points though. Yeah, that's true. Biggest issue is the Age of Sigmar's land won't fit in those bases. This is a big problem. Now we get into the lore versus game balance. Yeah, that's an interesting discussion to have, Tommy. I think having it better than High Elves is better. They're also 285 points base. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you change this to be able, just like, you get the High Elf reroll, so once per turn you can reroll a failed spell, and in addition you know one more spell, that's probably fine. At 285. I don't know. I'm just nervous about all of this, because there's so much buffing going on. That's a lot. Okay. I don't think Lisbon would become an impressive army because of one reroll. I don't necessarily think that that's the reason that you should... Like, I don't think that's the cutoff, right? That you make them oppressive. If you just make something too good compared to everything else. It's to match the upgrade for the Dispel. Is that what the Lizardman Dispel is? I will say their chart for the Cold One powers I'm not impressed by. Reroll one of the d6. This is a really strong power. And if you could keep the Slan alive, you probably actually see this. Okay. So what does the Lizardman setup look like? Let's just go to... If we just, like, dummy out a Lizardman list. So, if we go a Slan Mage Priest, probably make it the BSB, right? Give it the War Banner, because I don't think there's anything particularly good. Law is kind of whatever. I think you take the Dispel power, if you can keep it alive. I think that's so strong, and especially because that unit's going to get focused. And then, what do you put in here? Probably Ruby Ring. You don't need to take Lore Familiar. Do you take one of these? I like the Cube of Darkness, but I don't know that it's necessarily useful here. Ore of Quetzal. No. Probably just an Earthing Rod, right? Would keeping it as a large target make it better or worse? Oh, definitely worse, I think. I know you'd be able to see things, but it would be too easy to snipe out. I think not having it a large target is absolutely fine. And the Temple Guard Bunker, so he's like 500 points plus to use a Slan. So, Kale, that's... the way the game is played at the moment is points denial is really strong. So having an expensive, like spending 500 points in core that isn't going to die because it's supported by your wizard that's really strong, like that's a really strong game plan. That's not a downside, that's an upside. That's a feature, not a bug. You wish Skaven had got the attention Lizards and Chorf seem to have got. Still don't resent them the love. That's a shame. Making the only one ancient state to get access to the Plastercast. Okay. Oh, what? Are there more changes? Have I may have gone too fast. Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, there's more changes. So, Temple Guard, initiative changed to 2. That's funny. Oops, wrong page. High magic with walk between worlds for Temple Guard feels strong. Yeah, that does feel strong. Yeah, so Temple Guard are initiative 2, and they get rid of the transferring, and you just add it to there. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks, Entropy. Stegodons, you can get the +1 from just a single engine of the god. That honestly might be too good with the Slan being now like an auto take, I think. Salamander Hunting Pack. If the artillery breath is an... Okay, what's the difference with fiery breath currently? Kim, it's not an official upgrade. No, this is the square-based team. Val Hefflefinger has put this together, and they were talking about it on the square-based pack. Right, so currently it is flaming attack, strength 4, AP1. Column of fire! Yeah, and another typo here. Column with an N. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Beowulf. That's really generous of you. If you are the recipient of one of those gifted memberships, please do thank Beowulf's incredible generosity in the chat there. Really appreciate that. And if you are made a VIP, come on down to the Discord, post in the Knees Roll section, and I will apply your VIP status so you can see the VIP Discord section for this month. But yeah, thank you again. That's really generous of you. I hope you're doing well. It's been a while. How's the transition over to Etsy? Or from Etsy? Haven't caught a live stream in a while. Thank you for the continued all support. No, thank you. Love doing it. Love doing it. Tommy's a VIP. Cool beans. Hell yeah, Tommy. It's always nice to see people who are active in the chat getting them. That's always appreciated. Yeah, so the Salamander Hunting Pack, I think this is really interesting. Giving it Column of Fire, I don't think it's a problem. And it could make you blow up. The big issue I have with Salamanders, apart from flaming attacks, like the Flame template being a problem, because bases got bigger and partial hits, it's so hard for you to get in range to use your Flaming Breath. I think this is a good change. I think I probably still don't play Salamanders. But I think if you were to play Salamanders, you're handicapping yourself less. So, this is cool. Yeah, to go back to the Stegodons, I think this might be too good. Being able to just get, like, a +1 to cast on a model that you were probably going to take anyway, that also has a magic missile, that's just parked up by your Slan, that feels like too much of a layering. I think that even with this buff, Slan is not a huge problem. I might be wrong, Mattia, but we're looking at so many buffs to them. So if we I don't resent that they're being buffed. I'm just worried that there's too much. So the movement change, I wouldn't argue, is necessarily a buff, despite it being better against the Falcon Horn. It's whatever. Troop type. So monstrous infantry, that's a buff. The base size change, that just comes with being able to put them in a unit. Losing large target, that's a buff. Losing close order, that's kind of whatever. Adding the wisdom, that's 2 buffs because you're getting 2 rules there. Palanquin, being able to be joined into a unit, that's another buff there. And then the Temple Guard, I think I've already said putting them in. And then the Stegodon, so that's 6 buffs. That's a lot to change. You can tweak like 2 things, and something that's bad becomes good. Now, Slan are very bad, so they do need more than just a couple of changes. I'm just worried that this is too many things layered on top of each other. So I think Lizardman Magic becomes very good if you can put a caster in a unit, because they can take any lore, right? Let me just double check. Battle, Elementalism, High Magic, Illusion, Necromancy. Yeah, so you're probably going High Magic, or like any of these 4 are honestly really solid. Necromancy's not awful, but High Magic for Walk Between Worlds to make your unit ethereal, give them reserve move. You give them +1 attack and a ward save on your turn only, so the turn you charge you actually get some use out of them. Elementalism, you can teleport the unit, you can give them a ward save, you can debuff your opponent, so that's another output. Battle Magic, you can move twice, which is really strong, but not super problematic on infantry. Giving them a ward save is really good, and then just being like a ranged damage output machine as well as good. Illusion for the -1 to hit, and then having a really strong caster for Masmet Mirage, Column of Crystal with 360 line of sight is really good as well. So I think being able to go into a unit might be too good. Because you get so many units over a 2k army, lots of small buffs that get out of control so fast. Like, even a 1-point decrease across an army seems small, but that gives most armies an extra 60 to 100 points. Does it say they can cast while engaged? If so, a little strong. Keith, I think they just cast normally. I don't think they get... oh, fuck, yeah, they can cast and dispel as not normal. Ugh. That is probably too much. You shouldn't be able to cast while you're tied up in combat, I think. I'm worried that this has overshot the mark. Don't get me wrong, I'm in favour of Slan being buffed. I just think this is good. Hassa, you're saying I don't think this is better than a Mortis engine? A Mortis engine is way too good. We shouldn't be shooting for, like, what's the most broken thing in the game, let's make it that good. I think we need to be below that level, especially if you're actively looking for support for this. If this has anything in it that's too good, I think that hurts the credibility of it. So I'm just worried that they've gone too far with this. And yes, you can tone down, but I'd rather that they undershot and made a second pass. Has Val built a Lizardman army by any chance? I think both him and Rob were super into Lizardmen in the run-up to the Old World. I think they were playing them in, like, the year prior to Old World coming out, when they were sort of, like, ramping up their enthusiasm for fantasy. I don't necessarily think that's why these are good. It's just a lot of changes, and I don't think anyone can honestly say that they can conceptualize how good something is with this many changes. I might be being overly pessimistic. I hope I am. But I think there's just a lot in here, and I'm worried about it. Like, I didn't even catch that you could cast and dispel as normally if you're engaged in combat. Like, I read it, and I just skimmed over, and I was like, oh, good, you can't cast assailment spells. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit worried there. Rickus, normally I have your back. You're counting buffs for the Slan that originated from the unneeded nerfs, i.e. large target, and 285 points because it was the most mediocre level 4. Appreciate the way you typed that, Rickus. That's cool. Haven't seen your name around here. Good to have you. So, yes, I am including things, and the reason that I'm doing that is because we're talking about the game. Like, we're talking about changes from the current game state. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make them back to monstrous infantry and lose large target. I think we absolutely should. What I'm saying is, there are, I think, with being able to cast in combat, that's like 7 changes. So even if we conservatively take off the 2 here, which is get rid of monstrous infantry, get rid of large target, we're still looking at 5 straight buffs. That's so many buffs. I don't know. It feels like a lot. I think I've kind of done this to death. It's released. We just need to see how it plays. I think Lizardmen are going to be one of the most engaged factions who pick up this and run with it, so we'll probably get some good feedback on that. Hopefully from their opponents, not from the Lizardmen players, because it's hard to say. Make Slan good again, and Val Hefflefinger. Both of those are great. I appreciate those. Alright. Cool. Lizardmen, maybe slightly overcooked. But they are dog shit at the moment, so, you know, we'll see. Ogre Kingdoms. What do we got here? So you can take 0 to 1 Tyrant or Slaughtermaster per 1,000 points. That's good stuff. And then all of the characters. I think this is exactly the same. Yeah, that's exactly the same. No changes there. Bruiser can be a BSB. Bellows and musicians. Okay, so nothing's changed there. Core, you don't have to take a unit of bulls. That's a good change. Iron Guts, Nobbler Fighters, Nobbler Trappers, Saber-Tooth Tasks. Nobbler Horde Army, inbound. Just wait. Gonna be bullshit. Not a serious comment. I think that's fine. I don't know why we need to have bulls. Well, that feels a bit crap, honestly. Special. Lead Belchers, Yetis, Nobbler Scrap Launchers. They're uncapped. I think they're uncapped in here. Oh no, the Scrap Launcher is capped with the Iron Blaster, but it's not as good, so I think uncapping it here is fine. So you could go 2 Iron Blasters and a Scrap Launcher. I think that's all that points allows for. Let's just have a quick look at the points of the 185. Oh, you could go to... Oh, God, they're cheap. Oh, they are cheap. 140 points for that. For a T5 5-wound chariot with a 4-up armor save. That's interesting. I mean, you're still locked because Mournfang is still really good. But if they're uncapped, I'm kind of interested in just being like, fuck it, we ball. Because they're super cheap for what they bring. That's interesting. I'm not saying it's a problem. I just think it's interesting. Noteworthy. Requires more thought. Man-Eaters capped, Mournfang capped, which is as they are currently. And then the Iron Blaster, 1 per 1,000 points. which is the same, but they've just taken the scrap launcher out of it. So, okay. Like I say, I don't think this is a problem, but this is interesting. Then into rare, Thunder Tusk, Stonehorn per 1,000 points. Still capped the way that it was before. Gorges and Giants. 0 to 3 Gorges, they're uncapped, but that's effectively not capped the way that the game is played currently. Okay. I think this is such a weird restriction, the Thunder Tusk Riders 1 per 1,000 points, because you can only fit 1 in, realistically, because you've got two, like, in every 1,000 points, you can spend 250 points on rare. Oh, hey, you can only fit 1 of these in per 1,000 points anyway. I don't understand it. But whatever. Again, this is not a criticism of the Renegade pack. They're not tweaking it. They've left it as it is, even though the base rule is silly. Ogres need characters that can be art and Mournfangs. I agree. As a previous edition Ogre expert, I'm ready to get judgmental. Hell yeah. Steve approves. Okay. What have we got in here? So, I think this is all super reasonable. 100%, like when I'm looking at this list, I'm going, can I break the game by just running cheap, heavy chariots that are, like, heavy? I think the answer is no, but this is, like, an angle that I'd be interested in going with. Don't think you could ever take characters on Mournfangs, would have been very strong if so. I remember in the White Dwarf, when they converted Rhinox riders, I'm pretty sure you could take characters on Rhinoxes. But that was before I played Ogres and before I, like, actively paid attention to competitive level changes. Okay, lead belchers. Replaced with below profile. So let's just have a look, because currently lead belchers are real bad. Let's have a look. So they've got a single shot, which is strength 5, AP 2, armor bone 1, cumbersome, multiple wounds 2. So the solid shot is exactly the same. Okay, changing as little as possible. That's fine. Scattershot is currently... You hit and then it's D3 hits. Armor Bane 1, Strength 3, AP 1. And then here you've got Strength 4, AP 1, Armor Bane 1, Cumbersome, multiple shots, but you ignore the move and shoot and multiple shot penalty. And it gains Cumbersome, so you can't stand and shoot with them. That's interesting. Forge World had Rider World characters. Nice. Yeah. God, they were great models. Back in day. This is an interesting change. So you've got 3 shots that are always hitting on 4s or 5s, depending on range. So let's assume 5s. So you've got 3 shots hitting on 5s, which means you're getting 1 hit at Strength 4, AP 1, Armor Bane 1. That is, objectively, at 41 points, not an issue. I don't want them to go more deep on this, but I think they could have gone further on this. If I remember correctly, and I'm going to pull this up off screen, was it 6th edition? Because I had an Ogre army. I didn't really play them very much. Because I just didn't. But I'm pretty sure you used to do, like, artillery dice worth of shots. Let's have a look here. Lead Belcher. I've spelt Lead Belcher wrong. You bugger. I bet there's a space in it. Oh, there's not. Okay, Lead Belcher cannon. Strength 4, armor piercing, multiple shots, artillery dice. Yeah, there we go. And... Okay. I don't know how penalties worked in 6th edition. But yeah, this feels fine. Like, if they printed this, I'd look at it and be like, huh, maybe I run some lead belchers. I like this. I think this is a very restrained middle ground. Cam says this seems good but busted. Tonk says old rule was an artillery dice worth of shots. 6th just rolled artillery dice. He tried to bring the stuff back that was changed in a bad way to how it was in the older days. Yeah, it was great bounce up to the Mitch Fires. But they still sucked. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is one of the changes I like more. DM'd you the Chorf list. I think that's about the best you can do with the Renegade list. Let me just pull that up on my side. Yeah, that looks pretty reasonable. you mind me talking about it? Like, is there? I don't know that you're potentially trying to keep this secret. Tonk says, then again, I have a habit of only rolling misfires. That's really funny. I do like that sort of unit where if you roll poorly, it just goes horrendously wrong. It's maybe not the most competitively balanced, but it's hilarious. I find that very funny. Go for it, Centiview, for that reason. Appreciate that, buddy. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't leaking something. So the list that Orsa sent me is the Wyvern on Black Orc Wyvern, and then we've got a Castellan on Bull Taurus, a Castellan on Bull Taurus. So you've got no casters, which is interesting. And then you've got some Black Orcs, 17 Infernal Iron Swarm in core, and then 2 Iron Demons. I think, yeah, this is pretty much sort of what I was expecting. I think maybe you tweak it so you drop one of the Castellans and you put in a cheaper level 4. I know you lose some of the melee prowess there, but I feel like the casters are really, really strong for Chaos Dwarves. You have a lot more play with them, so, you know, maybe I'm incorrect with that, but it's an interesting choice. David, I always roll misfires on my Iron Blasters, but only rolled one against you. Against Steve, both cannons exploded. Hey, yeah, David! David, I played against on last Saturday. He was playing an Iron Gut Star, and I was very confident going in, and then I really misplayed, actually, which was... that's not to take away from David's play. I think David played pretty well. I think he did exactly what he needed to do, apart from getting stuck in a wood, which was really difficult just because of the limitations of the board that we were on. It was a great game. Glad you enjoyed it, bud. I did as well. I was sweating from like turns 2 through 4. For some reason, I had a blank where I forgot that you can't fly over Column of Crystal. That's 100% correct, and I completely whiffed on that, and I was like, what do you mean? So my dragon didn't do much for the middle of the game. Pulled it back, but it was not my finest moment. Can't take both Blorks and Ironsworn in core. Oh, okay, yeah, back to the Chaos Dwarfs. Yeah, cool. Interesting. Lewis said, just played a game against them. The best strategy with Ogres is probably still the Iron Guts Death Star. Works even better as points in now that you'd have to waste 120 points on Ogre Bulls. I think that's super reasonable. Yeah, I think it's an interesting build. I think it's got team's potential. I think it's interesting. But then again, I think good dragon play can shut it down. As I put to practice, I did play a dragon and I did charge and I did kill. Although David did get unfortunate on that leadership role. I had very bad rolls in the early game. He had good rolls in the early game. I had very... Oh, no, my rolls in the mid to late game were, like, decent or slightly too good. And then David got his bad luck in the second half of the game, which is unfortunate for him. So overall, still one of the weaker armies. They could have buffed them more. Yeah, I think that's fair. Failed. Leadership 8 rerolled. Oh, God, yeah, you rolled a 9 into a 9. That was pretty rough. Just not having the balls is enough to make me interested in buying some ogres. That's great. I really like the models of ogres. I know they're old, but they came out at the right time for me. And I was like, oh, wow, this is fresh and new. Cool. Okay, this is good stuff. I think that's... Oh, I haven't even done it. So Iron Blaster, it has to shoot in the front arc. Yep, good change. Obviously, we talked about this for the demons. The core factions have had this change. Everything else hasn't. Yada, yada. It's good. Hunters can stay in skirmish formation. Again, see previous complaints about skirmish breaking the game just as a general quibble. I don't think it makes them too good, and I actually think it really helps overcome some of the issues that ogres have, which is fast things getting around their unit, like their charge arcs. So this is probably good, but I'll be honest, against David is when I learned that Saber Tusks have skirmish. He deployed them in skirmish. I was like, let me just check that on my phone. Oh, they do have the rule. I'm an idiot. All right, let's move on to the last one. That Rabastard is here. We can't disappoint. We've got to make sure that we're showing off the Skaven changes. So let me just get... Oh, no, there's vampire counts as well, but okay. So let's go through Skaven. So, characters. 0-1 Warlord, 0-1 Grey Seer per 1,000 points. I think that's what they have already. Let's just go back up to the... changes here. Oh, it's uncoupled them. I don't know that this needs to be uncoupled. having Lord level characters capped feels right. I don't think it's a problem because Skaven are underpowered, but I also don't know that that needed to be changed. The worst thing about skirmishes is that there isn't enough of it in a game. Yeah, especially on units with Swift Stride. You're right, buddy. And then we've uncapped the engineers, the Plague Priests, and the Warlock engineers. This is a good change here, like this. This is maybe unnecessary, but also I'm not going to throw my, rattle out the pram. Just, it doesn't feel right in terms of how Old World is generally balanced. Everything should be able to skirmish for -1 poison. I think that's good. Yeah. Could feasibly get 2 Warlords and 2 Greyseers and a 2k army now. Yeah, you absolutely could. I don't know you do. I think maybe 1 Warlord and 2 Greyseers is probably a good middle ground. So you get the Warlord for the leadership and then the Greyseer. Although the Greyseers give out the leadership because of... Yeah. It is what it is. Like I say, Skaven are struggling. It's not the end of the world. And because you can't take mounts for them, like proper mounts. Although you can take the dragged along stuff. Anyway, you can't put dragons in the list, so it's probably not an issue. Okay, core. You don't have to take clan rats. Hell yeah. That is the worst thing about Skaven. Having to take 2 mandatory units of 20 clan rats fucking sucks. Someone needs to carry the Fellblade. Nobody needs to carry the Fellblade. Unless they fixed it. Maybe they fixed it. Night Runners, Giant Rats, and Rat Swarms. These are all the same as normal, other than taking out the cap. And then 0 to 1 unit of Storm Vermin if you've got a Skaven Warlord. And 0 to 1 unit of Plague Monks if it includes a Plague Priest. I like that change. I would have maybe said if army includes a commander of the Warlord clans, so even if you've got a chieftain, you get it. That is a very minor quibble. I don't think that's necessarily a big problem, because you can take a Warlord for 90 points, and you're not capped to your wizards. But I think I'd still put them in, like, if you can take a chieftain, you can take the Storm Vermin. I think that would be an okay change there. Because the Plague Priest is a hero-level character as well, right? Hopefully the Fellblade is common now. And 25 points, so you can put it on unit champions. I don't think there's many unit champions that can take magic. Okay, special. Gutter Runners, Plague Monks, Storm Vermin, Rat Ogres, and Giselles and Poisonwind Globadiers. So this has changed, so it's not 1 per engineer. That's a very good change. This has changed so you don't have to take Plague Monks, Plague Priests to take them. This is a very good change. Gutter Runners, still my bae. Rat Ogres, still great in theory. I think this is my only disagreement. I think Plague Priest and Core outshines the other core options. It's not a big deal, but a minor internal balance thing, in my opinion. That is fair. I still like Storm Vermin. It's like, do you want to go more toughness, or do you want to go more armor, right? So Storm Vermin are coming in at 10 points a model, call it 11 with shields, whereas I think Plague Priests are like 7. Let's have a look at this. Plague Monks, yeah, coming in at 7. But it's realistically 9 because of the additional hand weapons. So for 2 points more, I like Storm Vermin more, but I don't know that I'm correct to. I haven't played much with either. I played 1 game with Storm Vermin against Shane Ors, who was in the chat, who made my entire Death Star panic and flee off the board despite having a BSB in there and them being leadership 10. Sag. I know how you feel, David. Cool. So, yeah. This is all good, like it. I don't mind this limitation where you have to have a Warlock Engineer to unlock them. I think that's flavourful. I think having it 1 per Warlock Engineer is where it really feels rough. Good memories, fuck off. We're seeing the Plague Monk Death Star about 50-50 at the time, despite it being special. Still not a big deal, though. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You might well be right. I haven't put like a lot of thought into it. So in rare, 0 to 1 Hellpit Abomination per 1,000 points. What if I wanted to take multiple? I saw Callum say that the Hellpit Abomination should just be replaced with a gigantic spawn until further notice. Yeah, I agree. And then if you've got a Warlock Engineer, you can take Doom Wheels and Warp Lightning Cannons. I think that's the normal limitation that we've got here. Honestly, I'd unlock them. So you could just have 0 to 1 Warp Lightning Cannon and 0 to 1 Doom Wheel per 1,000 points. I don't know that we need to have them capped, and Skaven are cheap enough to have both. And then probably the same here, because I think they serve different purposes. So if it was Warp Lightning Cannon or another War Machine, I'd be like, okay, maybe we don't let you have 4 War Machines per 1,000 points. But if you can take 2 silly chariots and 2 silly cannons, I don't think that's an issue at 2,000 points. I think this bit here could be made less restrictive. And then for Clan Pestilence here, like the Plague Cook Catapult, again, you're not taking 4 War Machines. If you're taking 2 War Machines and then 2 units of skirmishers with frenzies and silly weapons, I think that's super fine. I think uncap this, so it's just, if your army includes a Clan Pestilence Plague Priest, you may take 0 to 1 of each of the following per 1,000 points. I think that's the change that I'd make for Skaven. And I'm sorry to all the Skaven players, if I'd got back to Val, I'm probably the reason this hasn't been changed, so mea culpa. BSB, I also wouldn't hate seeing the Plague Monk, or like, you know what, I'd love to see, and I know this isn't necessarily backed up by previous editions, I'd love to see all of the hero level characters be able to take a BSB. Maybe not the Assassin, that would maybe be a little bit weird, but the Chieftain should be able to, the Plague Priest, the Warlock Engineer as well. And then you can go for like a really themed army. Even then, you know, maybe the Master Assassin as well. That's probably not any good. That's too antithetical for what an Assassin's meant to be. But I think I'd like to see all of the other choices be able to take a BSB. Is it a big change? No. It's flavour more than anything else, right? 0 to 1 of each per 1,000 points, so at 2k you can do 2 Doom Wheels, 2 Warp Lightning Cannons. Is that 0 to 1 of the following? Oh, of each. Sorry, I misread that. Okay, I went on a rant, and that's how it is already. Good job, Val. You've done it. That's good stuff. All good stuff there. Cool. So let's have a look at the change here. Okay, Clan Rats. Okay, so you've uncapped the top end. I don't know if I want there to be an uncapped top end. Adding Regiment as well. Regiment's fine. Uncapping the top end, I think, only leads to degeneracy. So maybe changing it to like 20 to 50 or something like that. It's probably not a problem. It's just like one of those changes that if there's a way to abuse it, someone will abuse it. I don't know if there's a way to abuse it. It just sort of like leaps out in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, this is some bullshit that you can possibly pull. Storm Vermin, add Regiment. Again, fine. I don't really care about Regiment units. Actually, fuck. Hold on. How does this interact with... how does this interact with weapons teams? So... let's have a look here. I think I just need to have a look at the base rules. So if we go to the old world. With Regiment, the Rattling Gun can stand and shoot for the main unit. Thing is, almost all units in Old World don't have a cap. This is just bring them into line with that. The game, as in general, had a unit cap. I'm with you, though. Yeah, that's fair. Like, I don't know that it's a problem. It's just one of those things that you read and you're like, oh, wait, hold on. Alarm bells. So... regimental unit, detachment. Oh, it's not allowing the Clan Rats to have it. That's me fundamentally misunderstanding what that change was. So this is, yeah, they're adding detachment here. If I just read one line down, yeah, so it means that they can stand and shoot for the main unit. Okay, this is a good change. That's fine. Yeah, so I'm wrong. What I was worried about is that you take 20 Clan Rats, and then you take a weapons team, and then you take a detachment of 10 Clan Rats with a weapons team. That's not what's happened. That's why I was kind of like, oh, let me look at this. This is good. This just makes all of this stuff work better. Cool. Hell Pit Abomination, toughness changed to 6, and add impact hits. I think they're still not playable. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's have a look at these. T6, 6 wounds with a 5-up regen. Impact hit, stomp. 210 is really expensive. You know what? T6 probably gets it past the bar to where you could play around with it. Doomflare is more interesting with detachment. I agree. All right, Warp Lightning Cannon. Here we go. So this looks like a massive buff, and it is a massive buff. And it's an absolutely needed one. Can you imagine a cannon that doesn't do multiple wounds? Unless they're the closest target to the cannon, an enemy character that is within 3 of an enemy unit that contains 5 or more models of the same troop type cannot be struck by the warp cannon. Great stuff. So this is making them better at killing stuff and then getting rid of the bullshit sniping that you can do. Right now the bullshit sniping is not really a problem because you're never killing anything, right? Because you've got variable strength and you're only doing a single wound to a character. But now you could very much snipe characters, so this stopping that is probably good. I like that. Okay, yep, and then these 2 changes are just to make the furnaces work, the furnace and the screaming bell work. Not being able to Verminous Valor. Verminous Valor lets you retreat to the back rank at any time. Not being able to do that with these is just good, so good catch on that. That was a worry of mine. Yeah. See, Ed, now you're getting to the end of it, and being it doesn't make a difference and you don't care, it's just more fun. So, I think I said earlier on, when I got to the bit where I was actually looking through the rules, there's no point me being here and like, oh, I don't think these should exist. I'm just trying to evaluate these based on how good they are for being in the PDF. I still have my reservations, but I think it would be a waste of everyone's time for me to look through these and just be like, oh, why have they done this? I don't like this. So trying to evaluate these with an open mind as much as possible. I think that's much more interesting and useful for everyone. But also, I don't think, across the board, I don't think the things they've done are massively impactful. There are some in here I'm worried about Lizardmen. Again, it's literally more about the splitting of the community that I'm concerned about. But yeah, we're coming up half 10, so we're going to just rattle through the last ones. The dragged along will still not allow for a proper charge. Rules as written. God damn it. Yeah, that needs to go in the fix. I know Shane's here to pass it on, or Val if he watches the VOD. That would be a good thing to change there. The reservations are that it splits the community, and that is standard valid. Yeah, what I really like about this is that I haven't followed up on the discourse around this outside of this stream, but in this stream, people have come in with valid concerns on both sides, and people have had like a really constructive discussion, and that's super cool. Like, you guys have been amazing. Like, I really appreciate the way that everyone is engaged with this. This has been really solid. Scaling Lisbon and being at least more playable is a good thing. Games Workshop shouldn't be beyond constructive criticism. Oh, buddy, I don't disagree with you. I give major criticism to Games Workshop. Although I do like to give them their dues when they do things well, because I remember the dark times. And I don't mean the end times. I mean just the Games Workshop as a company. Cool. Okay. Let's have a look at the vampire count changes. So there's no army list changes for vampire counts, which is good because they have one of the most free choices. Like, there's not really anything in here that I'm like, oh, this needs to not be limited. Maybe Black Knights. Being able to take an extra unit of Black Knights would be maybe better. Additional unit of Crypt Horrors, but like minor quibbles. So, vampire counts changes. I think these might be nerfs just across the board, right? So, you do all this model is engaged in combat with. If this model is engaged in combat, it may only target a unit in base contact. That is fair. Let's just reread Wailing Dirge. It's such a mouthy rule. Unless it marched, may make a Wailing Dirge attack, target any enemy unit within 8 inches of this model, including units engaged in combat, and that they can draw line of sight to, or that it is engaged in combat with. So this is normally not a problem, but I guess actually a lot of the stuff that it's engaged with, a lot of the carriers have large targets, so we can see over stuff. So yeah, I think this is a good change. I would rather it couldn't scream in combat, but you know, maybe that's too much to tweak. Mortis Engine, not cumulative. So that's a buff and a nerf in the two. So if we just go to the Mortis Engine, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Mortis. Here we go. So, a Quest Reliquary, which is +1 to movement and initiative. This is really strong. And then Blasphemous Tome, +1 to casting roll is good, but if you're within range of 2 Mortis Engines, oh no, I guess this bit of it doesn't actually have a stack. I've had Vampire Counts players tell me that it does stack, which is like them getting it wrong in my favour. So, you know, that's fine. But yeah, okay. So just 2 nerfs. I think that's super solid. I'm very in favour of that. Having multiple of them stack just feels wrong when other things in the game don't stack. So, Shane, the issue with Dragged Along is that the max charge distance is based on the movement of the model. It's not based off the models near them. So when you declare, because when Dragged Along gives you the movement, it gives you it when you start moving. So your charge range is the 2 inches on your profile plus the d6. And then as soon as you start moving, you get the increased movement speed. So that just maybe needs tweaking in the writing. Vampires leadership changed to 9. Yeah, someone earlier said that this shouldn't happen. I agree. I think having, like, undead are already strong enough. I think just leaving them at leadership 8 is good. Don't give them more buffs. I think that would be good to get rid of. Add full plate for 9 points. I don't hate full plate going on them. I think 9 points, like, the way I thought 3 points for Chaos Dwarves was maybe too little. I think 9 points might be too much, but also I'm not necessarily quibbling about the way you want to do it. I think heavy armor might be 6 points for them or something stupid. Let's just have a look at how they're currently set up. 3, 6, 9. Yeah, that's fine. It's in line with. So this is fine. I think this should come out. Black Coach, make it a bigger base size. I guess that's more just a case of what the physical model fits on. Dark Acolyte, change the second sentence to read, for the purpose of this special rule, they count as level 1 wizard. Dark Acolyte, that's the one where you get to res models, right? No, Dark Acolyte is your +1 wizard level. Let's have a look here. No, I was right, it is resing. Gains the invocation for the rule, it counts as level 1 wizard. Is that a problem? Is there anything that can be a wizard that doesn't have it? Oh, okay. So if you take a level 2 Vampire Lord, you're resing as a level 2 instead of a level 1. Okay, that's fine. I think that makes sense. 9 for Vamps because they start naked, but pay 6 for heavy. Yeah, that's fine. Means you can't hide your count as a non-general bonus 4 plus 4 mortis. Yeah, that's cool. And then Dark Vitality, add that you can wear armor without penalty, which is... How many points is it? Master of Black Arts, right? No, Dark Vitality. Wait, what? Am I stupid? Page 27. Oh, you're just saying that you can have wizards in armor. I think that's fine. I don't think that's an issue. Obviously, it makes the Abyssal Terror build a little bit stronger, because you can buy them full plate and give them a shield, so they've got a 3-up save against shooting. Yeah. I don't think it's an issue. I think this is not super out of line of what we'd expect to see. To buff the regen. Yeah. Vamps can have armor and cast. Yeah, like, thematically wise, I have no issue with Vampire Counts having the ability to cast spells while wearing armor. It feels right and thematic. It, like I said, it does buff the Abyssal Terror build a little bit, but it's probably not a problem. Cool. Well, that is a lot of changes that we've gone through there. That is a whole lot of changes. I was hoping to write some lists as well, but we have gone for 2.5 hours, and while it has been fun, I think we probably call it there for the evening. Maybe I look at doing a stream on Sunday and we try and break some of this. I'm not sure what my timing is like. I am pretty busy at the moment, but yeah, it's been good. Illusion Vamp's giving -1 hit and Spectral in Graveguard with Leadership 9. That's funny. Dark Elves Nest page. I did Dark Elves already, buddy. I did them in alphabetical order, just because I got from Demons and it went to Lisbon. I was like, hold on a second, what's going on? But thanks for the catch there. Wouldn't want to have missed my Dark Elves. Cool. Well, if you're watching this, obviously when you've been live, loads of people have weighed in. It's been great to see lots of different perspectives. If you are watching this back, I'd love to hear your perspective as well. And obviously, deliberately, as I've said, I only put only reacted to the first 30 minutes or so of the Squarebase video. I think you should go and check out the next hour if you're interested. Especially have a look at their thinking for what any armies that you particularly play. If you're a Lisbon player, maybe you know what? After this stream, I'm going to go back and listen to the Lisbon. I could listen to it now, but I have said that I'm deliberately not doing that. So I'll go and listen to that off stream and see what their thinking is on the Lisbon changes, because they're the sort of spicy ones. Callum says, absolutely sick of me. That is fair. That is fair. Stargazing Kiwi, missed it all. Oh, no. Well, the joy of VODs is you can watch it back and catch it. Thanks, everyone. It's been a good evening. Hope you all had a good time.